28 Days Later is a post-apocalyptic zombie horror series that revolutionized how zombies were perceived in the modern day in 2002. The brainchild of Danny Boyle, this series is getting a much-needed new edition announced last year, so we thought it would be fun if we filled in the gaps for you before the new release. The 28 Days Later comic takes place right after the events of the 2002 movie and contains 6 volumes. So without further ado, let us find out what happened after Jim, Selena and Hannah were saved in the movie. Oh, and a small request. Consider becoming a member through the link in the description. It helps us in ways you can't imagine. 28 Days Later, Volume 1, London. Calling Issue Number 1, Expectation versus Reality. The comic begins with a glimpse into the memories that still haunt Selena, the day she had decided to hack down Mark in a heartbeat, her hurried escape alongside Jim, the time when Frank had been infected and they had to hold Hannah back, and of course, the few moments where she had thought that Jim had been infected and had readied her mind and body to take him down. All these moments have one thing in common. All of them changed Selena. They hardened her and taught her to take a life in a heartbeat without worrying about the consequences. And this haunts her because right now there's no need for this skill. She is safe and sound, high up in the hills, in a refugee camp near the city of Bergen in Norway. The camp is full of survivors from Britain, and when the kids mistakenly kick a ball into her tent, we see that she is perceived as the scary lady of the camp, because the kid who has the guts to walk into her camp and ask for the ball respectfully suddenly has some street cred now. We then see Selena being visited by a mysterious man who introduces himself as Clint Harris. Selena doesn't like Clint because he's an American, and she has grown to hate Americans because they and the rest of the world refuse to help the people in Britain and are now planning extreme measures of retaliation while hiding any and all information about the outbreak. Clint doesn't blame her, and then he reveals the reason for his visit. NATO forces are about to forcefully take back Britain, and before that happens, he plans to go inside and uncover the truth on his own. Clint is a war journalist, and he wants to go into London to uncover the truth about the outbreak on his own. This baffles Selena because he is here to enlist her as his guide. Selena is obviously furious because her, Jim and Hannah's story is well known to the world, and she finds it disrespectful and heartless on Clint's part to even suggest the idea of taking her back to London. She tries to warn him about the dangers that await him in London, but he seems to be hell-bent on uncovering the truth. He apologizes to Selena and leaves, but this visit has stirred something inside her. We see her reach into a lockbox and stare at a necklace and a pair of earrings. It turns out these were gifted to her by her partner, and although she didn't like their design at first, they have become precious to her since the outbreak. We then see Selena wipe her tears away and prepare for the job at hand. She puts on the necklace and earrings, wears her iconic bandana, and then pulls out her signature machete wrapped up in cloth from under her bed. She has changed her mind, and just as Clint is about to leave with his team in a helicopter, Selena joins them, revealing that she has changed her mind. Clint is quite welcoming and introduces Selena to his team. There are 4 members apart from Selena, Trina, a middle-aged woman, Derek, the young, able-bodied muscle of the group, Hirsch, a long-hair bearded man who acts as the support, and Acorn, an old man who handles most of the logistics. Most of the crew is quite welcoming, except for Derek, who doesn't believe Selena's story and thinks of her as a liability. As they take to the air, Clint reveals that they will be landing in the Shetland Islands, where they will meet their supply boat and use it to make their way into Scotland while using the Orkney Islands as their cover. This is the only way to bypass the quarantine in place, and Selena cannot explain how a 700-kilometre journey to London from Scotland will be one hell of a task for them. Derek tries to belittle Selena for judging their skills, but she reveals to everyone that they don't know the extent of the outbreak, what the infecteds are capable of doing, and what they will all be forced to do when the situation gets dire. This conversation, however, is abruptly interrupted when a jet fighter flies awfully close to the helicopter as a warning. Turns out, someone is patrolling this airspace contrary to Clint's intel, and they are ordering the helicopter to turn around because this is restricted airspace. Clint orders the pilot to press on, and the jet is forced to fire warning shots at them. Clint uses this to his advantage to pretend that the helicopter has been shot, and this allows them to make an emergency landing without being attacked by whoever is patrolling this airspace. Selena smiles at Clint when he returns because it's happening just like she warned him. Plans don't really work in this part of the world. When they land, Clint sends Hirsch to fetch them a taxi or some kind of transport while ordering the rest of them to unload their supplies. This is when a private conversation between Derek and Selena reveals that he sees her as a liability, which is why he is so hard on her. He has a hard time believing her story and suspects that she might have survived purely based on luck. However, Derek quickly gets to see what Selena is all about when they spot Hirsch mindlessly calling out to two people in the distance who begin to beeline for him as soon as they hear his voice. Selena knows that they are infected, but nobody except her in the group has a clue about them. She rushes towards Hirsch, pulls out her machete, and then attacks the infecteds while pushing him out of the way. She hacks the first one to death and then slices off the face of the second one before it can bite Hirsch. Clint and the rest of them are horrified by what just happened, but Selena takes this moment to assert what she has been claiming. This is what the outbreak is all about. They will be forced to act at a moment's notice, and they might not like the choices that they make at that moment. She then turns to Clint and says, "They shot at us because the infection isn't contained. It has spread this far. So Clint, what's the plan now?" Before I continue further into the dark abyss, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Marvelous Long Reads, and hit the bell icon so you never miss our explorations of the most extraordinary and chilling comics out there. And now, back to the story. 28 days later, Volume 1, London Calling, Issue number 2, Slow Pickings. And so begins another story of unlikely survival. Selena orders everyone to move, but Derek wants to go back to the chopper. Sadly, the problem is that they will be shot out of the airspace this time because the military will be under the impression that they all have been infected. Reluctantly, all of them run to a nearby estate while being chased by an infected. Derek manages to open the door in the nick of time, and Selena saves Acorn from becoming a victim by leaping on top of him. The problem they now face is the fact that their supply boat will arrive in Sombra first thing tomorrow morning. If they aren't there to meet the guy Clint hired, he will leave after realizing that the entire city has been infected. Selena, however, hates the idea of traveling through the night, but this race against time means that she will have to break one of her core rules. Derek is quite smug about this entire thing, and the growing animosity between the two of them is slowly bringing down the group's morale. Clint breaks up this back and forth by making them realize that they need to work together, and this means finding a transport. Derek is a former soldier, which means he can find them a truck, while Selena is more than capable enough of watching his back. And so Clint pulls off the oldest parenting trick in the book, making two siblings that are at odds with each other work together. Neither Selena nor Derek is happy about this, but they don't have much say because both of them know that this is what the group needs. Selena, however, lashes out when Derek mentions hiding behind a tree while jacking the truck that they need, and that is because he still fails to realize what the infecteds really are. He isn't hiding from enemy gunfire, he isn't hiding from smart people, he is hiding from mindless rage zombies with only one thing on their mind: flesh and blood. Selena then controls herself and orders Acorn to be their lookout from inside the estate. Before Derek and Selena jump into action, they have a heart-to-heart conversation. Derek promises to haunt Selena if he dies during this ordeal, and a dejected Selena tells him that he won't be the first ghost exacting revenge on her. They then leap into action. Derek focuses on the truck door, while Selena focuses on the infecteds rushing towards him while wearing goggles and a mask to cover her face and save herself from the blood splatter. She slices the face in half of the first one, and this gives Derek enough time to unlock the door and hotwire the truck. However, instead of letting Selena in, he simply drives away. Selena is baffled by this betrayal because she is about to be ambushed by half a dozen infecteds. Meanwhile, inside the mansion, Clint, Randall, and Acorn are busy finding makeshift weapons. Randall is the helicopter pilot who has been forced to accompany them. He is currently breaking a chair to use its leg as a weapon, while Trina and Hirsch investigate a mysterious sound inside the estate in the background. Trina tries to stop Hirsch from making the oldest mistake in the horror movie trope guidebook, but he is obligated to investigate the sounds of someone in pain because of his Hippocratic oath. However, walking in the dark without a flashlight is never a good idea, and Hirsch finds that out the hard way. He falls into the empty elevator shaft, but thankfully gets his fall broken by something squishy. But when Trina uses her flash to momentarily light up Hirsch's surroundings, they realize that all the infecteds from the estate are currently in the elevator shaft with Hirsch. Hirsch leaps for the door, and Trina pulls him up in a jiffy thanks to the adrenaline rush. They both sprint towards the rest of the group, but Hirsch loses loses a shoe during this escape. We then catch up with Selena, who is busy running away from the infecteds after Derek betrayed her. When they're about to catch up to her, she turns around, fights back, and manages to subdue 2 of them. But sadly, she falls down by the end, and that is when a 3rd infected leaps at her. However, the next second, a speeding van driven by Derek crushes the attacking infected to pieces. He opens the door and explains himself to Selena. He had hoped that the infecteds would be drawn to the truck, but that never worked. Selena is furious, and Derek agrees to hear out everything she has to say once they have managed to escape the estate. With Selena in the truck, Derek backs it up and aims for the estate's front door. A similar struggle ensues on the inside. Clint and the rest are gunning for the main door after Hirsch and Trina's hasted arrival. However, Acorn manages to do his job and push them all back in time before Derek crashes through the front door. Selena opens the back doors and everyone rushes inside. An infected man manages to grab onto Clint's hood, but Selena easily slices its arm off. They make a hasty escape as we learn that Hirsch is their resident medic and quite well versed with how the rage virus travels. Thankfully, he wasn't scratched or bitten during the entire scuffle. Randall helps Derek navigate as Selena and Clint discuss where Derek's loyalty lies. Clint assures Selena that Derek can be trusted, and after a few hours, as the sun sets, they manage to reach the docks where they are supposed to meet the supply boat in the morning. After a long day, they decide to spend the night in a nearby abandoned restaurant and try to wind down with some drinks and gambling. While the others drink and wager all their precious possessions for the first game, Selena grabs a bottle of grain alcohol to create a Molotov cocktail. Derek uses this moment to apologize to Selena, and the two end up burying their differences after a quick shot. During this time, Clint reveals that Hirsch has gone to look for a pair of shoes that he can use for the rest of their journey. We then see the game of poker get sealed by Selena when she goes all in by putting her machete on the line, but that is when their fun is interrupted by Hirsch's screams. He has managed to reach them in time, but is currently grappled by an infected man whom he can barely keep away. Selena quickly gears up and hacks the man to death, but by then it's already too late. Hirsch shows Trina the bite mark on his arm, and Selena is once again reminded of her trauma because Hirsch has been bitten in the same place where Mark was. 28 days later, Volume 1, London. Calling, issue number 3, Failing Plans. Hirsch tries to play off the bite as something negligible, but Selena knows what this means. Without hesitation, and without paying attention to the pleas of Clint's crew, she moves in and hacks Hirsch to death. She pushes Trina aside, and once she's done, she slaps her to stop her from frantically trying to reach Hirsch's body. Derek tries to confront her, but she holds the machete up to his neck, and then explains to everyone how the rage virus works. As soon as the virus is in your skin, it's all over. The infection takes over the body within seconds, which is why she had warned them all that they needed to be ready to kill anyone in an instant. She then mobilizes the entire crew. She orders Derek to create more Molotov cocktails, puts Randall and Trina in charge of barricading the main door, and orders Clint to ensure everyone has a bar rag. Clint tries to care for Hirsch's body, and this is when Selena snaps and tells him to assess his actions carefully. She orders him to stay away from the blood and to keep his emotions in check. She then pulls Trina away from Hirsch's body and once again reminds everyone that they need to stay away from the blood at all costs. She then orders them to use the bar rags to cover their faces, and this is when they realize why Selena wears the mask and goggles. Once the work is done, Clint covers up Hirsch's body with a tablecloth. This is when Derek informs Clint that Trina is going to be a problem for them. She and Hirsch were in a relationship, and while the rest of them were busy staking out their surroundings, she had been staring at Selena since Hirsch's death. Clint tries to make her see the truth and justifies Selena's actions, which causes Trina to break down into tears. He then tries to talk to Selena and learns that this isn't the first time she has been forced to kill someone she knew. It's the reason why she doesn't like talking to people. It makes it easier to kill them that way in case they get infected. Their talk, however, is cut short when Selena spots the infected rushing towards the restaurant. They begin banging on the barricaded door incessantly, making Trina scream, "Why won't they stop? Please just stop and leave us alone." And this makes it quite clear how naive and ill-prepared Trina is for this outbreak. The barricade begins to give way, forcing Clint and Selena to hold the door closed. However, seconds later, an infected man jumps in through the glass window on the opposite side, and Selena rushes to kill him while shoving Randall in her place to help Clint keep the door closed. She begins hacking them down one by one as they come in through the window, and Derek begins begins mowing down any leftovers. During this entire chaos, Trina finds a moment where everyone is distracted and bites Selena's hand. Selena shoves her away and then kills the last infected currently attacking them. Once it is all over, we see why Trina had bitten her on the hand. She is claiming that Selena was bitten by an infected. Derek tries to finish the job quickly without verification, which gets him punched in the nose by Selena. She then shows everyone the bite. It didn't pierce her skin because she was wearing leather. It's the reason why she wears a leather trench coat, and she then reveals that Trina bit her in an attempt to frame and kill her. She then gets up in Trina's face and challenges her to kill Selena head-on if she's so hungry for her blood. This confrontation, however, is broken up by Derek, who tells them that the boat is here, but more infecteds are coming for them. They all run towards the arriving boat, while Derek uses all the Molotovs to keep the chasing infecteds at bay. They all burn, but they don't stop chasing the survivors. Clint conveys everything to his man on the supply boat, and they all quickly jump on. Trina and Selena are the last ones in line to board the boat, and before they reach it, one of the infecteds manages to grab Trina. Selena promptly decapitates him and then narrowly grabs the boat's railing in the nick of time as it pulls away from the docks. Trina tries to thank Selena but stops midway, still clearly conflicted by Hirsch's death. We then learn that the supply boat is posing to be a Navy ship that has managed to elude the military forces so far. The survivors then head below decks, and Selena learns that they have brought everything for the journey: cameras, satellite phones, monitors, portable transmitting equipment, and guns. Derek hands Selena a Desert Eagle, and she reluctantly takes it. However, once Clint catches up with them after his talks with the captain, she poses her biggest question to him: how are they supposed to carry all of this equipment once they hit land? However, before Clint can answer, he is summoned above the decks. They have another problem at their hands, and it's quite a huge one. We then see Clint use the binoculars and realize that they can no longer escape the military, because in the distance is the quarantine zone cordoned off by the US military. A battleship and an aircraft carrier stand guard while flanked by many assault ships. 28 days later, Volume 1, London. Calling, Issue Number 4, Face Off. And so the standoff against the military begins. The military forces try to hail the ship, but Captain Harlan, Clint's longtime friend and associate, refuses to answer. After all, when you're pretending to be the Navy and harboring war journalists that plan to expose what the US military is trying to do, it's best to keep your guard down and act naive. After all, a Navy boat with a broken radio that hasn't spotted the fleet is far more plausible than a pretender ferrying war journalists in the name of good. But in doing so, Captain Harlan expresses his concerns to Clint. He owes Clint big time, and that is true, but his debt isn't big enough to sacrifice his men and vessel. He begins to question his choices. He begins to question his choice of not answering the radio. After all, coming clean and going back to society seems far more enticing than actively heading into a country infected by the rage virus. This is when Clint puts his foot down. He helped Harlan multiple times back in the day, helping him through scenarios nobody could ever imagine. And right now, Harlan needs to pay his debts. Clint just lost one of his crew members trying to get here. They lost Hirsch, their resident medic, and so they need to see this mission through for him, if not for themselves. Harlan's eyes harden as he realizes that Clint isn't about to gloss over this so easily. He finally realizes that his measly vessel will have to go up against US assault ships, and their only chance of surviving this ordeal is to act coy while losing the large ships amidst the Orkney Islands. Meanwhile, the tension is palpable above the deck. Without Clint present, the whole crew seems to be falling apart. Trina expects to be killed by the military any second now, while Randall is perplexed by the lax attitude of the military. After all, they did try to shoot his helicopter down the previous morning. Even Derek is on his toes. He doesn't seem to know what or how they should be helping, and once again, Selena comes to their aid. She hands out orange life jackets to each of the survivors. When they ask her what's the plan, she tells them it's simple. The military is less likely to attack a Navy vessel with innocent civilians on board, rather than a vessel harboring what looks to be survivalists and war journalists. However, this is when Derek once again compromises all of their standing by pulling out his camera. He begins documenting everything around him, including the military fleet, and this puts Selena on the edge. It's not like this is the 1700s, and Derek is using a spy spyglass that the military can't spot. This is the modern day, and they likely have eyes on each one of them right now. Derek tells her that Captain Harlan is one of the best, and Selena doubts this statement because every plan that Clint has hatched since their journey began has failed miserably. However, on the next page we see that the crew might have gotten lucky this time because the fleet and the assault ships have decided to turn around and forgo their pursuit. Surprising, yes, but a much-needed victory that Clint and his crew will gladly take. Captain Harlan suspects that this might be because they have just entered the Scarpa flow, but either way, he is eager to capitalize on his victory. He orders his crew to increase the speed while ordering Clint to mobilize his crew because they will be hitting land within the next few minutes. Clint rushes above deck and tells everyone to gather their belongings. They begin to gather their supplies, food, water, and recording equipment. But thankfully, all Selena needs to do in this case is bend down and simply pick up her small backpack. She asks Clint how come they are being let go by the military. She suspects he might have pulled some strings, but Clint comes clean. He tells her the truth. He tells her that for some mysterious reason the military decided to stop pursuing them, and frankly, he doesn't care why or how. But that is when the air begins to hum and then roar. The loud sound of a raptor flying through the air begins to echo and close in on them, and when Clint looks towards the horizon, his worst nightmare comes true. He finally discovers why the military decided to give up on their pursuit. They didn't want to risk their vessels. They had better ways to take care of Clint and his crew from afar, and the most convenient one was a simple projectile from an F-22 Raptor. Clint watched in horror as the jet approached. He had no time to say anything, not even a second to scream, and then the bomb finally dropped and the boat exploded into a million bits. We then see Selena remembering the time when she had flooded their house's basement by mistake in an attempt to fix a plumbing leak. Her husband had been quite understanding, but she had fallen into the water while trying to get out of the basement. This is exactly how she feels right now, while coming back to her senses under the water near the Orkney Islands. She surfaces gasping for air, and once she has her bearings, she frantically begins to look for Clint and his crew. She looks around, and the destruction around her is simply horrendous. The boat has been blown to smithereens. Debris is scattered everywhere, and by the looks of it, no one could have survived this attack. But once again, Selena pushes this thought out of her brain. If she was able to survive it, then surely others could have survived it too. Clint, Derek, Trina, Acorn. She begins screaming their names and starts searching her surroundings meticulously. And then her heart perks up when she spots orange in the distance, and as she gets closer, she realizes that it is Trina. The same purple shirt, the same bob cut. It is definitely Trina. Selena rushes towards her, but as she gets nearer, the water gets muddier, and she slows down instinctively. She knows what this is. She knows this color, this smell. It's the smell of blood, the scent of iron, and as she gets closer and looks down at Trina, she realizes that Trina is no more. She has been gored to death. Her entire body has been ripped in half, and her legs are nowhere to be seen. Where once would have been her legs are now her untethered innards, floating aimlessly in the water, just like the rest of her. This despair, the black of the water surrounding her, are thankfully broken by the screams of Derek the very next second. He is splashing in the water, waving his arms, and creating a lot of chaos while calling out for Clint and the rest of the crew. He is looking in the other direction, and despite Selena trying her best to get his attention, he continues to face away from her. This is puzzling, but she isn't about to give up now. She rushes towards Derek, calls out to him, and then places her hand on his shoulder. But when Derek turns around, Selena has to use all her strength to resist the urge to run away. Derek's eyes are covered in red and black. His entire face is riddled with cuts, and the reason for his frantic screams and flailing arms now makes sense. Derek can't see and does not know what happened or what is around him. Selena tries to calm him down, but Derek is on the verge of insanity. He is incomprehensible and panicking. Selena has to scream to calm him down so that her words can reach him. She assures him that she is directly in front of him and that he needs to use his ears to follow her. She gives him hope by saying that he can't see right now because his eyes are covered in blood, cuts, and shrapnel. The salty seawater isn't doing him any favors either, which is why he is unable to see for now. Once they get to the shore, Selena will be able to clean his wounds, and everything should turn out all right. Derek believes her, but then begins to panic again. He begs Selena not to leave him, and he begs her for his life. She is once again forced to assure him that she is going nowhere. She asks him to swim towards her voice, and then begins to lead herself and Derek away from the wreckage. Every 10 seconds or so, the panic gets the better of Derek, Derek, and he calls out Selena, desperately asking if she's there, and Selena is forced to reassure him that she hasn't left him. This cycle continues as they head for the shore, when suddenly, in the dark of his surroundings, Derek hears someone that he had given up on, someone he had thought had died. He hears Clint, who rushes towards them as Derek's heart finally decides to slow down after realizing that Clint has survived. A much-awaited reunion happens, but Clint informs them that their lives are at risk if they stay in the water for too long. It is cold, and as the sun continues to set, the water will get colder and they will be risking hypothermia. This is why, as much as he would love to have a happy reunion, they should be swimming towards the shore without wasting a minute. And so, once again, their arduous journey continues, only this time it's just 3 of them. No crew, no equipment, and no Captain Harlan, just Selena, her backpack, alongside Clint and Derek. Derek has a major panic attack when the 2 of them stop talking to him while making their way to the shore, but Clint shows compassion and calms him down. After all, why not? Derek is his best friend, and it is a boon that he managed to survive in the aftermath of what they'd just experienced. An F-22 Raptor bombing a measly ocean vessel. Not many in the world can say that they have survived such an ordeal, but they have. Derek has, and Clint uses this to reassure Derek, and they finally close the distance between themselves and the land. By evening, they manage to reach the shore and then carefully make their way inland while avoiding the slippery rocks. They stop for a moment to rest a while, and Selena uses this time to check up on Derek's wounds while Clint looks in the distance. Clint's fears come true when he sees Black Hawk helicopters circling the wreckage in the distance while being flanked by vessels in the sea. It's clear the US military is looking for survivors, and they are looking to finish what they started. Clint realizes that they aren't safe. They need to hide from the military because any second now, the helicopters and vessels would be headed for land to scout for any survivors. Selena and Clint quickly drag Derek to a nearby crevice in the ground where they can hide. The 3 of them wait with bated breath as seconds later, a Black Hawk helicopter passes over them, awfully close to the ground. They wait for the helicopter to move away, and once it does, they continue their journey inland. By night, they are on top of a hill, and it seems like a good place to make camp as any, away from towns, away from the infecteds, and away from the shore and military. Selena sends Clint to gather wood and twigs that they could use to light a fire while she uses this time to clean up Derek's wounds. Unfortunately, all she has right now is the cloth she uses to cover her head, which is drenched with seawater. But by now, Derek has stopped caring. The salt water has been stinging his wounds since the crash, and so he couldn't care less. He simply wants his wounds cleaned, and so without another word, Selena obliges and begins to wipe the blood off of his face and eyes. Just when she is about to be done, Clint returns with wood that they can burn. Unfortunately, they have nothing to light a fire, but this is when we see Selena's backpack come to their rescue. She pulls out the only source of fire on them and tosses it to Clint. It is a Bic lighter, and she wants him to be careful with it. Once the fire has been lit and Derek begins to feel its warmth, he begins to panic, because despite his wounds being clean now, he can't see the fire. He begins to scream and look around frantically, only to be then calmed down by Selena, who tells him that his eyes are likely shocked by the explosion and just need a few days to recover. She then heads away, and Clint and Selena use this time to have a private conversation. This is when Selena reveals the truth. The explosion has blinded Derek. His retinas have been completely burnt, and there is no coming back from that. She lied to him moments ago to make this blow a bit easier on him. She then takes Clint further away to discuss what they are to do with Derek. She wants to ditch him because he's going to be a liability, but Clint instantly refuses this idea. Selena reluctantly agrees and then forces him to think of a better plan, a plan that is better than his past ones that have failed them over and over again. She breaks it to him that they're low on supplies and weapons. All they have are the few protein bars, Selena's machete, and the gun Derek gave her before the explosion. They all settle down for the night as Selena mockingly welcomes her 2 fellow Americans to Scotland. 28 days later, Volume 2, Bend in the Road, issue number 5, beginning. This comic shows us the past, how it all started for Clint a few months ago when the outbreak had just begun. He was on a 2-week vacation out of Baghdad, desperately trying to get some sleep, when his editor had called and informed him of the outbreak. Clint had turned on the TV, watched a reporter get mauled by the infecteds, and promptly jumped to his feet. This was a story Clint didn't want to miss. His partner in crime was of course Derek. Derek had become an alcoholic alcoholic and racist after a radical Islamist group in Afghanistan kidnapped him and his crew. His entire crew was beheaded, and by the time the rescue team reached them, Derek was the only one still alive. Clint convinces Derek to accompany him on the flight to London, but things are quite harrowing when they reach the airport. Tensions are high, and Derek instantly gets into trouble for recording the crowd. Heated words and racist remarks are exchanged, and what's more is the fact that Clint is only able to secure them a flight to Frankfurt. All flights to London have been cancelled. After a brief scuffle with the security force, the pair is able to board their plane without any issues, and once they get on it, they learn why this flight wasn't cancelled. The flight is ferrying FDA experts, genetic doctors, and FBI agents to Frankfurt, and they're all on their way to assess the situation in the UK. What's spelling more trouble for Clint is the fact that Derek has lost all his journalistic integrity and has now become a full-on racist, and for lack of a better term, a KKK member. Clint tries to make Derek see that this isn't a terrorist plot. He has talked to the experts on the plane and has learned that they all believe that the virus originated in a lab in London. We then see a time gap and catch up with Derek and Clint a month later in Burke, France, where Derek is busy filming locals carrying out a mini genocide on the seagull population of the area. We learn that the two spent a month in Germany fighting for French work visas to get close to the UK, and then we see them meet up with Major Sanders, a US Army officer who has been working closely with the ground forces to learn everything about the infection. He owes Clint a huge favour, which is why he is going to give them a quick crash course on the infection. Through their talks, we learn that the entire world is in a state of panic, and though they know that the virus isn't airborne, this hasn't stopped the locals from taking their own preventive measures, which would explain the seagull and water-based genocides all over the world. We also learn that the US is planning to capitalise on the outbreak by taking over the UK. Once all of this has been explained, Sanders leads Clint and Derek to a military facility while they are all dressed from head to toe in hazmat suits, or, as Sanders likes to call it, 50 kilos of artificial plastic skin necessary in the new world. Clint and Derek watch in horror as they realise that the US military has been carrying out inhumane and illegal experiments on prisoners of war during these times to learn more about the virus. They have been voluntarily infecting them with the virus in an attempt to find a cure. Derek and Clint are shown a first-hand view of the entire process, but things go awry when the infected POW manages to grab the doctor's apron and trip him over. When the doctor trips, one of the syringes, still full of the infected blood, stabs him in the arm, and it's all over. Through this entire debacle, Clint learns that the Americans have been using different samples on different POWs in order to find a cure, but that is as far as he is able to get. Sanders then murders the doctor in cold blood before the infection is able to take over, but that is as far as his owed favour to Clint goes. He orders Clint and Derek to leave the facility immediately and never return. Clint and Derek discuss their next move in a bar, and we learn that this is when Clint hatched the plan to recruit Selena. He shows Derek the paper and points to the only photo of the 3 survivors out of the UK. Hounded by the media while being flanked by the soldiers, there's a photo of Jim, Selena and Hannah on the front page. They have been colloquially termed as the Manchester 3 by the media. 28 days later, Volume 2, Bend in the Road, Issue number 6, A Touch of Community. We then catch up with Selena and Clint in the present time. Things aren't looking good because the two of them are currently being chased by infecteds. They both sprint through the woods as Clint slowly comes to terms with his dwindling health. They both are headed for Derek, who is cozily hanging out near the fire they made last night, completely unaware that they are about to be swarmed by a group of the infected. When Selena sees that the group is headed for Derek, the adrenaline rush pushes her towards him, and she manages to get to him just in the nick of time. She uses the machete to make quick work of the infecteds, but Clint and her both know that more are headed their way this very instant. Clint helps Derek to his feet, and the 3 of them start looking for another place to stay the night. We see that Derek has grown more delirious throughout this entire ordeal, and for some reason he is fixated on the heat from the fire. Clint and Selena manage to find an abandoned home to spend the night, and once Selena has ensured confident that no infecteds are residing in it, they quickly head inside. However, things take a turn for the worse when Derek suddenly collapses onto the floor. His fixation on heat is explained when Clint and Selena rush to his aid. Derek has a high fever and, unfortunately, it isn't the flu. His wounds are infected and, unfortunately, if he doesn't get antibiotics soon, they will become septic, which would mean a slow and painful demise. Selena scours the house for general supplies, while Clint looks for medicine specifically. She finds bottled water, while Clint returns with aspirin, bandages, and general cold and flu medicine. Unfortunately, he didn't find any antibiotics, but Selena figures that the flu medicine should help keep his fever down for now and help him sleep tonight. Once Derek has been taken care of, however, Selena reveals what has been on her mind since Derek's wounds became infected. She wants to kill him to increase their chances of surviving. However, Clint isn't going to let his best friend die and is furious that Selena is even suggesting this. He vehemently denies what she is saying and refuses to kill his best friend once and for all. Selena tries to get him to see that Derek's fate is sealed either way. If he survives, sooner or later he will be caught by the infecteds and he will likely take them down with him during that whole debacle. And if that doesn't happen and they fail to get him the necessary antibiotics, then the wounds will become septic, resulting in a long, slow, and painful death. Clint refuses to accept these factors and instead wants them both to go looking for antibiotics the next day. They will find a car, drive to the nearest pharmacy, get what they need, and be on their way. That's it. That's the end of the discussion for Clint. And when Derek begins mumbling about being a journalist in his sleep, Selena gives in, partly because Derek isn't a bad person. He is simply haunted by the time terrorists kidnapped him, something he is dreaming about right now, and partly because she sees herself in Clint. Just like her, he is making bold promises that he won't be able to keep. With this thought, they go to sleep and they use the better half of the next day to walk to the nearest town in search of a vehicle. When they find one, Selena heads to fetch them fuel while Clint is left with Derek so that Derek can teach him how to hotwire a car. Derek is struggling a lot. He has a high fever, no vision, and a lot of trouble focusing his mind. While Clint is learning how to hotwire a car, Selena is busy siphoning fuel from nearby vehicles. She remembers Frank fondly in this moment because he was the one who showed her how to siphon the fuel. Once she gets back, Derek is in the bed of the pickup truck because his health has deteriorated further, but he somehow managed to teach Clint how to hotwire the truck. However, when he tries to spark the two necessary wires, he gets electrocuted. After all, they're in the UK, and the wires they need to hotwire cars in this part of the world are likely different. There's a storm brewing in the sky, and it's about to rain any second now, so they decide to bed down for the night and instead try to get the pickup started tomorrow. Selena and Clint cover the truck bed using a tarp and then climb in beside Derek while keeping each other warm. As the night dawns on them, Selena fondly remembers her time with her husband David and how she had overpowered him playfully during a teasing discussion they had while he tried to fix their home all on his own. This memory, however, is cut short by Clint's hand covering Selena's mouth in the present day. She is startled but quickly focuses on what Clint's trying to show her. Hundreds of infecteds are now prowling the street mere inches away from them. Hell breaks loose when Derek mumbles in his sleep and gives away their position. They both quickly shut his mouth, but by then it was too late. All the infecteds leap for the truck, but thankfully they only attack the driver's cabin and pay no heed to the truck bed. Once they are satisfied that there is no one in the cabin, they leave the area. The next morning, Selena and Clint are relieved when they discover that the truck has only suffered cosmetic damage. They try to hotwire the truck again, and this time Clint succeeds with a sly smile on his face. And so, with a long-awaited win in their corner, Clint and Selena begin driving towards the nearby town of Hulkirk. A few hours later, while Selena is busy poring over the map and plotting their route, she feels Clint slow the truck down. Puzzled and surprised, Selena looks up, and Clint tells her he has stopped because he spotted movement up ahead. They all get out of the car, and by now we see Derek has become delirious and depressed. He wants to die, but Clint tries to keep Derek together by promising a better future. Selena arms herself and scans her surroundings, but soon stops in her tracks when she sees a gun pointed directly at her. 3 survivors, who have somehow managed on their own, are now confronting them. Their faces are covered, and this couldn't mean anything good or civil for that matter. 28 days later, Volume 2, Bend in the Road, Issue number 7, Leverage. Our story begins with the standoff between Clint, Selena, and the mysterious survivors. The man wielding the gun is calling the shots, while the other two men, armed with a baseball bat and a crowbar, are backing him up. Clint is the one doing the talking, and for some reason, the mysterious survivors think that Clint and Selena might be infected, which is why they want them to talk. Clint talks as requested, but when the armed man forces Selena, she instead headbutts him and snatches his gun away. The man is stupid for assuming them to be infected, because none of the infected drive or stay still when a gun is pointed to their head. Clint calms both the parties down and then reveals to the man that Derek is sick and that they're in search of medicine. The mysterious band of survivors is on their toes, and naturally, after hearing that Derek is sick, they assume he is infected. Clint reassures them that Derek is just suffering from infected wounds and asks for help and if they could spare some medicines. The man sighs and lowers his guard. He tells them that he is not the one managing their resources and the medicines are not his to give. Their leader is a woman named Kate, and they will have to ask her for help. He reluctantly agrees to take Clint, Selena, and Derek back to their hideout, but when he asks Selena for his gun, she refuses to hand it over. They reach a barricaded compound and moments later are greeted by a portly and rough-looking woman who, as it turns out, is their leader, Kate. No doors are opened, and the conversation is conducted through the barricaded gate with the razor wire adorning it. Kate at first refuses to help Clint and Selena entirely. Selena had expected this and is being her usual cold and mean self, but Clint, on the other hand, is doing his best to keep the conversation civil. When the man who brought them here slips and mentions the survivors having medicines, Kate gives him a murderous look and tells him to shut up. Selena then joins the conversation and offers to give back their rifle in exchange for medicine. But this is when Clint abruptly joins the exchange and orders Selena to stand down despite all her protests. He orders Selena to give the rifle back, who reluctantly hands it over after keeping all the ammo for herself. Clint continues to plead with Kate, and she finally gives in. She tells them about Halkirk, points them in its direction, and tells them that it's a 3-hour walk away. She even informs them that the chemist is at the intersection of Church and George and is in a red brick building. This is when she is once again interrupted by the man beside her, and a murderous look from her once again shuts him up. When Clint thanks her for the help and is about to leave, Kate offers to care for Derek while they are gone. Clint is about to agree, but this is when Selena decides that she has had enough. She pulls Clint aside and demands to know why he has been making such weird and frankly stupid decisions. This is when Clint points to the roof and tells her about the sniper he spotted in the window. Clint calms Selena down and continues talking to Kate, and we learn that Halkirk has been a black hole for survivors. Whoever goes there never comes back, which is why Kate forces Clint to leave their working vehicle behind. Selena is growing agitated with each word uttered by Kate, and naturally so. She is playing with Clint and hatching some sort of devious plan, but Clint insists on playing along. He knows Derek is going to die without antibiotics, and so he is focused on saving his friend through any means possible. If this means getting trapped in Kate's devilish plan, so be it. They park the truck inside and walk away against Selena and Clint's better judgment while Kate stares at them with disgusted, hollow eyes. As Clint and Selena walk away, they both argue about the choice they just made, and Clint ends up hurting Selena by saying that she gets to call the shots when her friends are dying. He apologizes, and Selena once again emphasizes that this is a different world, a world where one has to be ready to make tough choices, even if it means killing or leaving a friend behind. We then see Kate's men bring Derek in and place him on the sofa, and this gives us a glimpse into how Kate runs the camp. She is a ruthless hoarder with all the supplies and firearms on her side, and she refuses to share them. Supplies are rationed and limited to each member, and this is apparent when she refuses to even spare water for Derek. The man who Selena headbutted in the morning is the one with a heart, and he lets Derek quench his thirst out of his own rations. We then learn that Derek is simply leverage for Kate. She then talks to her son, Douglas, over the radio, and by now, Clint and Selena are on the outskirts of Halkirk. They find a car with keys still in it and decide to use it on their way back. Selena then pulls out a map from it and locates the intersection they need to go to. They reach the intersection of Church and George and find the red brick building as instructed by Kate, but it has no shop. They decide to look inside in case this is a warehouse of medicines, only to be greeted by a teenage boy inside. This is Douglas, and Kate tricked Clint and Selena into rescuing her son. Douglas, his father and his uncle were on a supply run in Holkirk 2 days ago until they went out looking for supplies and never came back. Douglas has been hiding here ever since. Selena, meanwhile, has been seething with anger. She knew something was wrong about this entire thing from the start, and now the truth has finally been revealed. When she learns that the chemist is on the other side of the town, she snatches the radio from Douglas, and then the much-awaited confrontation between her and Kate begins. Kate threatens to kill Derek if Selena doesn't bring back Douglas, but Selena insists on visiting the chemist first and abruptly turns off the radio. Clint fears for Derek's life, but Selena assures him by pointing the knife at Douglas. Derek will now be safe and sound because Douglas is their leverage, and his mother won't risk his life for anything. 28 days later, Volume 2, Bend in the Road, issue number 8, Easier Said Than Done. The comic begins with Douglas pleading with Selena and Clint to hide when Clint spots movement outside the nearby window. The very next second, the infecteds come crashing through and the chase begins. Clint falls on the ground and Selena barely manages to pull him out of the way. They all then run towards the only other door in the warehouse, and once inside, Selena orders Douglas to look for a way out while she and Clint barricade the door. Douglas finds the exit door, but they have a problem on their hands. The door has been chained and heavily padlocked, so their only choice now is to go on the catwalk above. Clint and Douglas are skeptical about Selena's decision, but she has a plan. The stairs are quite weak and rickety, and they use this to their advantage once they are on the top. Selena and Clint stomp on the stairs until they break, which essentially stops the infecteds from getting to them. However, in doing so, the catwalk shakes, Douglas loses his footing and falls into the barricaded area below. He has hurt his ankle, and the only thing keeping the infecteds away from him is the measly chain-link fence. Selena wants to leave him behind, but her heart melts when Clint and Douglas call her for help. Selena ties her leather trench coat to the catwalk, hands Clint the Desert Eagle, and then climbs down to Douglas's aid. Thankfully, he has only twisted his ankle, which means he'll still be able to walk, albeit with some pain. Douglas climbs back up with Selena and Clint's help, and Selena follows him, while barely managing to escape the infected after they rush for her once the fence is broken. They try to open the nearest window, but unfortunately it won't budge, and by now, one of the infecteds has managed to climb on top of the catwalk by using the others as a stepping stone. Selena gets an idea, orders the other two to get away from the window, and then uses her legs to push the rushing infected out of it. The window breaks, and they now have a way to escape the warehouse. They quickly climb on the roof, and then Selena reveals the next part of her plan. They need to use the thin wire leading to the other roof to make their escape. Reluctantly, Douglas and Clint follow, and they jump from rooftop to rooftop until they have reached the chemist. Clint and Selena use a torch to gather as many supplies as possible, while Douglas uses this moment of respite to contact his mother. Selena wants him to stay quiet, but Clint speaks in Douglas's favour. However, as we've come to learn by now, they all should be listening to Selena because the very next second, they are ambushed by the infecteds attracted by Douglas's voice. Kate screams for her son back in the camp as the radio is abruptly cut off, followed by the incoherent snarls of the infecteds. She begins to weep and then decides to follow through on her plan of killing Derek if anything happens to her son. This is when we learn the name of the man who has been helping Derek survive on his rations. His name is Cameron, and he is the one who is once again asking Kate to rethink her choices. They don't know what happened to Douglas. Why would Selena kill him now after having helped him escape from the warehouse? But Kate doesn't listen to his pleas. She grabs a kitchen knife and heads towards Derek. When Cameron calls what she is about to do murder, she justifies it by saying that Derek is going to die a slow and painful death anyway. What she is doing is mercy. However, we then see what transpired at the chemist. Selena, Douglas and Clint had escaped the shop in the nick of time. However, Douglas had dropped the radio during this hasty escape. The three of them then jump into the river and ride the flow towards the bridge that leads out of the town, the one where they had found the car with keys still in it. The infecteds get drowned by the river's current, and Clint remarks how Selena's plans always manage to work through sheer luck. Hours later, Kate is reunited with her son, and Clint can't help but smile at this reunion. He then heads to check on Derek, only to find a small slice under his neck. When he asks what happened to Derek, Kate says that she was careless and ended up scratching Derek while shifting him into the bed. Later, Selena and Kate have a conversation, and Selena reveals that they will be staying with the survivors for a few days until Derek gets better. They found enough supplies in town to facilitate facilitate their stay, and Kate nods in agreement. However, this conversation soon turns into a stare-off because Selena knows Kate was inches away from murdering Derek, and the scratch under his neck was no mistake. And Kate knows that Selena wanted to leave Douglas behind because her son told her about the incident at the catwalk. This stare-off ends when Kate says, "Guess it's not so easy murdering someone," and Selena replies, "Guess not." 28 days later, Volume 3, Hot Zone, Issue number 9, Hunted. The art severely changes for this story arc for our protagonists, and it begins by showing us the dead, milky, lifeless eyes of Derek as Selena examines them closely. A few days have passed, and the trio has spent a good amount of time at Kate's hideout. Derek's health seems to have improved a lot. His wounds are no longer infected. In fact, they seem to have healed up quite a lot. He has minor scars, and as Selena talks to him, we learn that his scars have begun to itch quite a lot, which is a good sign. It means that he is recovering and should fully recover in the next few days. Selena then asks about his vision, and we learn that Derek by now has accepted the truth. He has accepted that he is going to be blind for the rest of his life, and he doesn't hold back when explaining his vision to Selena. He can only see dull shadows and maybe vague shapes if it's bright enough. Selena is quite close to his face when examining his eyes, and Derek jokes that her breath stinks in order to ease her mind. Selena smiles, leaves Derek alone, and meets up with Clint in the dining room. They discuss the looming subject of what they're going to do with Derek now that he's all better. Selena wants to leave him with the survivors here at Kate's camp. They can gather enough supplies to leave Derek with them until they return. Now that Derek is blind, he is of no use to them. Selena is quite sympathetic when expressing these views, but she needs to say it nonetheless. Derek can't be a lookout. He can't watch their backs, he can't see, and he will need to be babied all the way to London and back. Clint knows this is a tough choice, but as promised, he doesn't plan on leaving his best friend behind. Selena sighs and admits that she knew this would be Clint's answer. She doesn't debate or fight him any further. Instead, she orders him to pack up ASAP because they are going to leave Kate's camp today. Selena has grown tired of this place and doesn't want to spend another minute in it unless she needs to. And then Selena gets another unexpected visit from someone she hasn't really talked to since arriving at the camp. Selena is taking a walk outside in the woods to calm her mind when Douglas approaches her. He knows that she is going to leave for London today, and surprisingly, he wants to come with her. He promises her that he's useful, can carry a lot of weight, can follow orders without issues, and most importantly, doesn't want to rot in this godforsaken camp. Selena is puzzled by this request. Douglas is safe here, he has enough supplies, and his mother is the leader. Why would he want to leave? And then the teenager says something Selena had never expected. "I hate that bitch. I can't stay with her. I won't stay with her. I'm leaving this place one way or the other." Selena does her best to understand where Douglas is coming from, and through their talks, we learn that even though Kate might love him, she is suffocating Douglas. Moreover, he blames her for his father and uncle's death. Kate knew that nobody had come back from Hullkirk, yet she sent her husband, her child, and her brother-in-law there, just so she could maintain her monopoly over supplies in the camp. Selena tries to reason with Douglas that Kate loves him, and that she tricked Selena and Clint to save his life. But Douglas debates this fact with the actual truth that Selena and not his mother saved his life in the heat of the moment. He then tells Selena that one way or the other, he is going to leave the camp. Whether she lets him accompany her or not is the second part of his plan. Selena's decision isn't revealed to us. Instead, we catch up with Clint and Derek on the next page. Clint has finished packing their stuff, but that is when Derek reveals that he heard what Selena was advocating earlier, and he can't help but agree with her. He's a liability for them, and Clint shouldn't insist that Derek come along. Clint sighs, and instead of giving Derek the same mushy speech he gave to Selena, he tells Derek that they need someone they can sacrifice when things get dire on the road, and Derek would make the perfect smart-ass fodder. "Hehehe, you arse," says Derek, and then accompanies Clint outside. As they are about to leave the house, Clint tells Derek that he's his best friend, and that is more than enough reason for Clint to save his life. As they exit, Selena approaches Derek. We see why she went into the woods. She was looking for something for Derek, and that something is a sturdy wooden stick, something Derek can use to guide and defend himself on the road. Derek thanks Selena, and we then see Kate approach the trio to see them out of the camp. However, that is when tensions pick up again, because Douglas uses this chance to reveal that that he is going to leave the camp with the trio as well. Selena and Kate both refuse his decision in unison, but this only emboldens his resolve. Kate threatens to beat Douglas, but this only intensifies his determination. He asks Selena one last time if she would let him accompany the trio, and when Selena refuses, Douglas leaves the camp all on his own. Kate continues to scream for Douglas to come back, but the teenager leaves the camp, and there's a hint of happiness in the way he walks. We then see Clint, Selena and Derek leave the house in a Volkswagen, and although they pretend to pass Douglas at first, Selena stops the car a few feet ahead of him. An elated Douglas runs to the car with renewed enthusiasm, and when he gets inside, he thanks the three of them profusely. This prompts Derek to say what he and Clint have learned the hard way after all the time they've spent with Selena. "Don't worry about it, Douglas. You learn pretty quickly that Selena talks a tough game, but she's really a big softie." Selena playfully tells Derek to piss off, and the three of them happily drive away without any issues. Once again, we catch up with the group in the evening. They've stopped the car and are discussing their next step. They're low on gas and need to find a place to camp as well. That is when Derek begins to hear a thumping noise, and at first, he suspects that it's his tinnitus acting up, but that is when Selena and Clint hear it too seconds later, and they all unfortunately recognize the sound. It's the same one they heard after touching land once their boat was blown up. It's the sound of a black hawk in the sky. They quickly run into the woods and hide while a confused Douglas keeps demanding answers. We then see the black hawk land near their car, and Douglas foolishly decides to run towards the military. Selena stops him and tells him that it was the military who blew up their boat. It was the US military that was itching for a takeover of the UK, and they don't plan on leaving any survivors behind, infected or not. We then see the soldiers swarm the car, and the warm engine quickly gives away their presence. They know someone was driving the car recently, and this is when we see their leader step out. The force is led by Captain Styles, a British officer, and he has been on the hunt for Selena ever since he learned about her presence. He gets out and orders his men to search the woods for her, and through the men's talks we learn that Captain Styles has an extraordinary hatred for Selena. He wants to hunt her down at any cost, and although the soldiers question his decisions and morality behind closed doors, they follow his orders without fail. The scouting soldiers narrowly miss Selena and the rest of the survivors, and then inform Captain Styles that they have found no one. Through Captain Styles' deductions, we learn that he is quite smart. He is sure that Selena drove this car because she is the only one smart enough to keep away from the military. Any other survivor would have run to them in order to be saved. He wants to scour the area from the air until Selena is found, but his team informs him that they don't have enough fuel for that. Captain Styles sighs, and we then see how much he hates Selena because he orders the soldiers to burn the car so that she is forced to travel on foot, making it easier for them to find her. When the soldiers stutter that they have no way of burning the car, Styles pulls out his own pistol and shoots all the tires of the car. The soldiers then leave, and that is when Selena and the rest of them begin questioning Styles' motives. What would drive him to hunt them down like this? Why is he so vindictive? Shouldn't he be fighting for his own country? Selena too is haunted by these questions, but she reminds them all that they can't waste too much time here. They need to leave fast, and they need to put as much distance between them and the car to avoid the soldiers when they come again. And so the four of them gather everything that they can and then set out towards London on foot. 28 days later, Volume 3, Hot Zone, Issue number 10, Grim Tidings. This comic opens up with Selena's body piled up in a mass grave as a mysterious man dressed in black scours the area. We pan out and see 3 soldiers from the secret forces searching the area for infecteds and other anomalies. One of them manages to notice that some of the bodies look fresher than the others, but they simply chalk it up to the army being stupid and thinking that the mass graves would contain the infection. They then walk away after remarking that Selena was smart when she was alive. At least she covered her face and eyes, but then again, it didn't help her stay alive. The 3 men walk away, and 30 minutes after their departure, we see Selena move and breathe a sigh of relief. She gets up and checks up on Douglas, who has been mortified by this experience. He had no way of covering his mouth and eyes, which meant that this experience was quite a struggle for him. Selena ensures that he hasn't been infected while Clint checks up on Derek. We learn that Derek's other senses have been growing stronger since he lost his vision. He was the one who heard the soldiers coming before any of them, and right now, he is the one who can tell how disgusting they all smell. They are practically indistinguishable from the bodies around them, and he remarks that they all could use a few rigorous baths. They all laugh, and then plan their next move. The soldiers are heading south, so the group decides to head east as much as possible and then head towards south once they have put enough distance between themselves and the soldiers. Clint and Derek then debate with Selena that these aren't the same soldiers that are hunting them. These were different ones that likely had a camp set up in this infected territory. But Selena tells them that these soldiers had American accents, and this is the point Clint agrees with. They all had northeastern US accents, which makes him suspect that these men were FBI. They were special forces, and they were likely stationed here on a secret mission. The group then heads into the woods and away from the roads in order to better hide from the two forces that now threaten their survival. And as they talk and speculate what the FBI could be doing here, we see Douglas learn and imbibe from their remarks. When they begin to discuss getting a car to ease their travels, Douglas remarks that they should get a boat instead. The Thurso River is only a few kilometers away, and it will be far easier to hide from the soldiers on water than on the roads. The FBI is likely regularly traveling on the roads, while none of them are paying attention to the waterways and rivers. However, the mention of a boat freaks Derek out, and he visibly squeals at the mention of it. They all calm him down and continue walking away, leaving Douglas puzzled about the group's attitude toward boats. This is when Derek decides to go pee on his own to regain some sort of control and to gather his thoughts. Selena knows Clint should be accompanying him, but Clint lets Derek go on his own because he doesn't want Derek to feel like a liability. After all, he depends on Clint for everything. Maybe the ability to relieve himself on his own would make Derek feel better about himself. We then see Derek use the stick and find a good spot to pee once he hits a tree. He begins to do his business while dissing Douglas's idea of using a boat, but that is when it is revealed that he is standing at the edge of a pit, completely unaware that even a small step ahead could send him tumbling into the pit. And when Derek begins pissing, he hears a loud growl and then a roar. He is pissing directly on an infected, and hearing his and the infected's screams, Selena and Clint rush to his aid. Selena manages to rescue him in the nick of time, and they then speculate how the pit got there in the first place. Clint speculates that it was created by the FBI as a trap, but Selena doesn't wish to speculate because she wants to stay far away from mysteries in this land of the infected. By evening, they find a cabin in the middle of nowhere, and although it is the stuff of nightmares and the beginning of every horror movie, they don't have any other choice right now. Selena goes ahead to scout the cabin, and we see that Derek has continued to wallow in his own sorrow and now is on the verge of depression because he feels useless. Clint tries to console him, but Derek now firmly believes that Clint should have let him die. We then see Selena enter the cabin, and thankfully it's empty, except for the hanging body of an uninfected human in the middle of it. We then learn that many people took their own lives when the outbreak was at its peak, and this was likely one of them. Selena cuts down the body, and the group uses the cabin to spend the night. They can't risk lighting a fire, and so they all huddle under a blanket except for Derek, who seems to be still struggling with his own shortcomings. Once Douglas has fallen asleep, Selena and Clint discuss Derek's current state, and we learn that they are both extremely worried about him. They know he is going to create quite a ruckus if they try to use a boat, and Selena jokes that she can handle him. After all, that happened today. She has seen his balls, and they aren't that big. Clint laughs, calls Selena devilish, and after this moment of respite, they all go to sleep. Selena then wakes up in the middle of the night, and we see that Derek is already up. He tells Selena to be quiet because he has heard movement outside. His other senses have been working overtime, which is why he was able to hear the FBI soldiers approaching the cabin. The cabin is quickly lit up by the headlights of a huge trailer, and we then see a soldier step out. Through his talks with the soldier in the truck over the radio, we learn that they are hunting an infected that they saw run towards the cabin earlier. However, the soldier is distracted by the body that Selena cut down earlier. He is just about to question who cut down the body, but he is then distracted by an infected attacking him. He quickly tases the infected and then wrangles him into the trailer. As he is talking with the driver, we learn that they had indeed set up the trap they encountered earlier, and they decided not to use the infected that had fallen into it because he smelled like piss, courtesy of Derek. The two, however, are frustrated because even though they've wrangled the infected, their objective is still unfulfilled, and so, as a last resort, They decide to use the plan suggested by someone named Zimmer. The soldiers leave completely unaware of the group's presence, and this is when we see Clint and Selena revise their strategy. They can't risk using the river or the roads now because of the FBI's presence, and they will now have to stick to the woods in order to remain hidden. This is when a grim and depressed Derek suggests that they should simply give up and let themselves get captured. Even if the military kills them, what difference does it make? This enrages Selena. After all the crew's death and all they did to heal Derek, she can't believe the words coming out of his mouth. Clint holds her back, but for the first time, he too seems visibly angry at Derek. Clint consoles Derek despite the urge to lash out at him, and Selena is distracted by Douglas, who tells her that the sun is coming up. Selena feels that this can't be possible because she was asleep for only an hour or so, but when she looks outside, there is indeed an orange glow on the horizon. But she knows what this is. This isn't sunrise, this is a forest fire, and this is the last resort the soldiers were talking about. 28 days later, Volume 3, Hot Zone, Issue number 11, The Captured. Forest fires wreak havoc across a large area, and this one is no different. The only way Clint and Douglas can explain the extent of the fire to Derek is by comparing it to the one that killed Bambi's mother. And when they mention Bambi, a deer comes hurtling toward them, and all of them duck in the nick of time to avoid getting hit by its hooves. Selena pulls Derek to his feet once again, and all of them continue sprinting in an attempt to outrun the fire. However, it is not just deer that are being funneled by the fire in their direction. The infecteds are being sent their way as well, away from the fire and directly towards them, the only escape route. And so, in order to buy them some time, Selena decides to hang back and kill some of them. She begins slicing through them one by one, but there's simply too many of them. Despite her best efforts, they keep getting closer to her group, and this forces Clint to order Douglas to abandon them. But before the approaching infected can reach Clint or Derek, Selena leaps at him and slices him down. However, the horde is now closer to them, forcing Clint to join the fight. The two of them end up using the Desert Eagle as a last resort, and Clint is forced to snatch it away from Selena because she doesn't know how to turn off the safety. They continue killing the infected until the last one is tased and subdued mid-air before it can attack Selena. The FBI soldiers that started this fire are here, and they aren't happy that the survivors have killed most of the infecteds. After all, they set this fire to capture the infecteds. When Selena demands answers, she gets hit with a racist remark in return, and when Clint tries standing up for her, he gets hit with the butt of a rifle in his gut. The soldiers assess the situation while arresting Clint, Selena, and Derek. They take away Selena's rifle and Clint's Desert Eagle. The assessment doesn't look good. Selena and Clint manage to kill all the infecteds except for the last one the soldiers manage to tase. But their luck soon turns up when they spot another horde of the infected heading their way. They use a flashbang to subdue this group and quickly begin wrangling them into a nearby carrier truck that they brought along. Selena and Clint watch with stunned eyes as the officer in charge informs someone named Billingsworth at the base that they have managed to fulfill their quota of captured infecteds thanks to Zimmer's plan of burning the forests. The sad part about this is the fact that Selena and her crew are termed as a problem. Found survivors are a liability to these soldiers. Selena is about to make a bold move, but Clint quickly holds her back and tells her that these soldiers are the real deal. Selena, however, has been growing tired of all the Americans using this opportunity to invade and exploit her country. And then there is another problem. When one of the soldiers returns with Douglas held by the scruff of his neck, their only escapee has been found, and now the officer in charge offers the group the choice of either accompanying them to their camp or to stay here and get burnt by the forest fire. Selena and the rest choose their only chance at surviving, and they are forced into the truck carrying the soldiers the very next second. The dual reality of this situation breaks down for Douglas in the truck when he hears the soldiers placing bets and settling debts based on recent baseball games. He begins to question the soldiers and grows frantic with each passing second. Clint tries to calm him down, but the teenager's emotions get the better of him. How can the world still be focused on baseball games while his entire country is being burned from the inside? How can they continue betting on sports and continue as if nothing has happened while the UK's entire population gets infected by the rage virus? When he gets no answers, the soldiers and Clint continue telling him to shut up. Douglas's outburst ends with these final questions. Don't people know what's happening here? Why are they playing sports? Why aren't they doing anything? The officer in charge of the group nips this conversation in the bud by telling Clint and his crew that he is obligated to bring them back to the base alive, but he isn't obligated obligated to bring them back conscious. This shuts them all up, and even Selena decides to say nothing after an intense stare-off with the officer in charge. We then see the group arrive at a temporary military base with a lot of medical facilities and wings. Once inside, they are quickly separated. Selena is taken into a nearby medical being by the officer in charge, while the rest of them are ushered somewhere else. Once Selena gets inside, she is greeted by a doctor, the same doctor who was radioed by the soldier's officer in charge earlier, Dr. Billingsworth. He is awfully nice compared to the soldier's demeanor and explains to Selena that they simply need a sample of their blood to ensure that she is not infected. She scoffs at the doctor and thinks that he is naive, but the doctor tells her that they have found proof in the wild that people can carry the virus without showing any symptoms. They have evidence of people being carriers, which is why a blood test is the best precaution. However, once the doctor has drawn the blood and the soldier has left the room, Selena uses the opportunity to break the doctor's nose. She then tries to make her escape, but the officer in charge is too smart for her. He hits her with the butt of his rifle and knocks her out instantly. She is then thrown into a dark room with the rest of the survivors, and the state of Selena enrages Clint like we've never seen before. He demands answers for all they've been through, but he has no jurisdiction or rights here. The officer in charge simply leaves after having thrown Selena with them, and we see that while she is knocked out, she remembers the time she was gardening before the outbreak. Selena and David had an old neighbor named Kirk, and Kirk was the one who helped Selena take better care of her plants by showing her how to use the right tools. And we then see the same trademark machete Selena used after the outbreak in Kirk's shed. The implication is clear. Selena took the machete from Kirk's shed. The memory ends on a good note, with Selena reminiscing about why she married David. It is then that she wakes up in the modern day. She talks to Clint and the rest of them and learns that they all had their blood extracted for testing. Clint tells her about his and Derek's time with Major Sanders and how the Americans have been testing with the infection since it started in an attempt to find a cure. They hope this facility is the same, but their hopes quickly die when Derek points out the obvious. He points out that they haven't been interrogated. The soldiers haven't asked for their names. They haven't asked what they are doing here, and for that fact, they haven't even asked if they are American or British citizens. Derek tells them from his experience of being kidnapped by terrorists that this doesn't bode well for them. They are basically prisoners of war for these soldiers. The soldiers come to fetch Selena again, and Selena uses this opportunity to establish her name. She asks them to stop calling her lady and use her name instead. Despite Derek and Clint's protests, Selena is once again dragged away and forced to meet up with Dr. Billingsworth. The doctor tells her that the good news is that none of them are carriers, but this ensues a confrontation between him and Selena, who lets out all of her anger against the American invasion on him. She blames him and the soldiers for the state of her country. She calls them capitalists and imperialists who are simply looking to profit off the infection by finding a cure. But when she mentions finding a cure, the doctor laughs in her face and tells her that they aren't trying to find a cure. He then orders the soldiers to put her on the gurney and strap her down. Selena resists, and this forces the officer in charge to mention her name, and when Billingsworth realizes that this woman is the Selena, it changes everything. He walks away from them, makes a call, and when he returns, he tells Selena that her fate is sealed, and it's not for him to decide what happens to her. Captain Styles has been hunting for a few months now, and he'd be more than happy when the doctor delivers her to him. After all, he has been itching to kill her. 28 days later, Volume 3, Hot Zone, Issue number 12, Too Good to Be True. Selena is once again letting her anger get the better of her, while the soldiers hold her back and Dr. Billingsworth taunts her. He can't believe that she is one of the Manchester Three. He would love to have used her as one of his subjects, but he is afraid of Captain Styles. After all, the man has been hunting Selena for months and would practically torture Billingsworth to death if he did anything to her. But this doesn't mean Billingsworth can't break her mentally. Selena lets her anger take over her, and she ends up once again blaming the Americans for screwing over her country. But this is when Billingsworth reveals why they are here. He says that America is here to perfect what the UK failed to do. The Rage virus was an experimental virus that was being tweaked to create super soldiers. The infected would have all the benefits of the Rage virus, minus the lack of will and brain hemorrhaging. He is here to perfect and weaponize the virus, which is why he has been carrying out experiments experiments behind enemy lines. Once he manages to achieve his goals, UK's demise will have some meaning at least, and Selena should be thanking him for it. Selena scoffs and curses at him, and this is when Billingsworth decides to reveal his cards and show Selena what he has planned for her. He is going to break her mentally, and he is going to do that by infecting Douglas in front of her. Douglas is brought in strapped to a gurney, and as the doctor begins to work on him, he begins to cry out for help. He starts regretting his decision of leaving Hulkirk. He regrets his choice to have ever wanted freedom, and in his last moments, just like any other kid in the world, he ends up crying out for his mother. But none of this stops Billingsworth. He plunges the needle beneath Douglas's skin and infects him. The infection takes over within seconds, and the soldier punches Douglas to intensify and expedite the entire process. Douglas roars with rage, and Billingsworth inspects his pupils once that happens. Douglas's capillaries show less trauma, but they show trauma nonetheless. His latest batch of the virus failed to achieve what he wanted, but despite all this, he has high hopes for the next batch. Selena is once again thrown into the dark room with Clint and Derek, and this time she is visibly broken. Selena is on her knees and weeping, unable to stop her tears or her bated breath. Clint decides to give her some space, but Derek says what is on everybody's mind. Selena is the toughest person he has known in his entire life, and if they manage to break her, then they have no chance of surviving this entire ordeal. But this is when Selena manages to control herself and tells Derek that he is right. He tells them what Billingsworth did to Douglas and how ruthless these soldiers are. She also tells them about Styles and that she has no idea why he hunts her incessantly. However, luck seems to be in their favour because on the next page, one of the soldiers informs Billingsworth that the fire has gotten out of control. They had hoped that the rain would stop it, but the past few days have been exceptionally dry. The fire will reach the compound within the next hour, and this forces Billingsworth to order an evacuation. However, before he leaves, he plans to test his latest batch on Clint and Derek, and he orders the same soldier to fetch the two of them. We then see Billingsworth grin maniacally, because although he can't touch or infect Selena, Styles won't be getting here in the next 3 hours, and by then she will have succumbed to the fire. This devilish and devious scheme scratches a psychopathic itch in Billingsworth, and it is a testament to the entire faculty's purpose. We then see the soldier approach Derek in the dark room, and we realise that the three of them had planned an ambush for the next soldier that entered the room. Derek distracts the soldier, and Clint uses this chance to grab him by the throat. When the soldier tries to use his gun, Selena bites his hand and forces him to drop his rifle. However, things seem to go awry when the Special Forces soldier easily subdues Clint and Selena, but we quickly learn that this was all planned from the get-go, because while the soldier has Selena pinned down by the throat, she is paying no attention to his threats. Instead, she is helping Derek aim the Desert Eagle, and he pulls the trigger the very next second. Bang! The job is done, and the three of them are finally free. Derek panics because everyone must have heard the gunshot, but when Selena looks outside, she finds the compound nearly abandoned. As she smells smoke, and they all quickly figure out that forest fire might be near the compound, Selena orders the two of them to meet her at the main gates in 10 minutes. She then fetches the dagger from the soldier's body and runs away while ignoring Clint's protests. We then see Selena confront Billingsworth and the officer in charge of the force. They tell her to stand down, but she quaintly ignores them and walks towards Douglas instead. She then slices his throat, and Billingsworth scoffs at her, suspecting that this was her tactic of intimidating him. But Selena tells him that she wasn't trying to intimidate him, she was simply being merciful to Douglas. But what she is about to do next is revenge. Selena then flicks the blood-covered knife in the air towards the soldier and the doctor, and the blood sprays into their eyes. The two of them begin to turn instantly, and in that moment the officer in command shoots himself to prevent Selena from having the pleasure of killing him. Selena then retrieves her machete from his dead body and slices off Billingsworth's arm with a quick slice, but instead of killing him, she leaves him locked in his own facility. Death is an end a man like him doesn't deserve. She then catches up with Clint and Derek and orders them to commandeer a Humvee. The two of them are scared because that would draw a lot of attention, but Selena has planned for that as well. We then see her rush towards the pen where they hold the infecteds they capture, and we all know what's coming next. The soldiers evacuating the compound in a Black Hawk are ambushed by a horde of the infectees within the next few few minutes, and that is the end of them all. Our 3 survivors escape in a Humvee, but Selena forces Clint to stop once they are a kilometer away. Clint tries to urge her to keep going, but Derek understands Selena as she watches the entire compound burn down. This is therapeutic for her, and she reveals this to Clint. She wants to watch the entire thing burn to a crisp. 28 days later, Volume 4, Gang War, Issue number 13, The Itch to Drive. It is now the next day, and thankfully Selena, Clint and Derek have managed to drive a lot further in the Humvee they stole. The problem they face right now is the fact that Selena drove over a piece of shopping cart which flattened their front left tire. They can't use the spare because it was flattened in the gunfire back in the compound, and so they are now forced to travel on foot. And once again, tensions between Selena and Derek are at an all-time high. It starts off with Derek suggesting that he should have been the one driving if Selena couldn't avoid a piece of the shopping cart, and continues when Derek is out of breath and is chided by Selena for making them stop once again. They haven't had any food in 3 days, and although Clint has been the one stopping them from fighting all this while, he can't be bothered about it right now. Clint leaves them to sort out their differences, and the conversation between Selena and Derek soon turns into a screaming match. Derek calls her a bitch, and Selena ends up blaming him for slowing them down and, in turn, causing Douglas's death. Derek then turns this conversation on its head by claiming that it was Selena who killed the teenager by allowing him to tag along with them. Selena is inches away from hacking Derek to death, but then controls her anger. Clint then brings them some good news in the form of an abandoned Aston Martin with its keys nearby. He is the one who wants to drive this time, but when he forgets and enters the left side of the car instead, he is forced to hand over the keys to Selena once again. They speed towards the town of Inverness, and Selena is testing the limits of the car when she is suddenly forced to slam on the brake because a piece of the bridge leading into town is missing. The Aston Martin hangs precariously off of the edge, and although Clint and Derek manage to get out easily, Selena stumbles backward and hangs from the bumper. Clint is forced to climb on the car to grab her hand, and this means that Derek will have to follow Clint's voice and put his weight on the back of the car. Derek thankfully is able to do his job well, and the 3 of them walk away from this scenario unscathed. Seconds later, the car falls down into Moray Firth, making Derek once again joke that he should have been the one driving the car, and they all burst out laughing. When they reach town, they find a store stocked to the brim with supplies, and they feast on as much junk food as they can. Clint packs some vitamins for the journey ahead, and they all then hatch the plan of commandeering a train to London because Derek knows how to drive one. His father was in the railways, and he was going to follow in his footsteps until he found his passion behind the camera. They all enter the train station and find it littered with dead bodies. Carefully stepping through them, the trio is able to make their way into the driver's cabin, but as they lock the doors behind them, we see that the bodies they presume to be dead might still be alive. Selena goes to check and scour the rest of the train while Derek teaches Clint how to drive it. He shows Clint how to disengage the brake and then shows him how to use the throttle. The train begins to move. However, on the other end of it, Selena discovers that the rest of the passenger carts are full of the infected, and only the one closest to the driver cart is safe. She rushes back into the driver's cart and barely manages to hold the door shut. Clint helps her, and they manage to slam it close, and this has bought them a minute, maybe 2 at most. The train is moving too fast, and Derek is forced to slam the emergency brake in case they need to jump down from it. Selena wants to disconnect the driver cart from the rest of the train, and Derek tells her that this is doable. However, the problem is that the decoupling mechanism has a failsafe to prevent it from happening accidentally. This is why it needs to be disengaged from both sides, and this means that one of them will have to be in this passenger cart to trigger the decoupling. Not only that, whoever is in the passenger cart will be left behind. 28 days later, Volume 4, Gang War, Issue number 14, being Selena. There may be 45 seconds until the door cracks, and Derek is the only one who seems level-headed for now. He is the one offering to sacrifice himself, and while Selena and Clint want to come up with another way to make their escape, Derek screams for them to assess the situation rationally. If they jump now, they won't survive. The emergency brake hasn't slowed down the train enough. If they stop the train and escape on foot, they won't be able to outrun the the infected. Derek knows he shouldn't have survived this long in the first place, and although Clint tries his best to convince his best friend to reconsider his choices, Derek is hell-bent on seeing this plan through. He shows Selena how she's supposed to push the decoupling button when she sees the green light, and then says his goodbyes to both of them. In Derek's mind, he has been living a borrowed life ever since he managed to survive the kidnapping in Afghanistan. What his last words to Selena aren't told to us, and we then see the driver's cart getting detached from the rest of the train, and Derek wishing them goodbye from the window with a huge smile on his face. Selena and Clint keep staring out of the window until Derek vanishes over the horizon, and once he is truly gone, what just happened dawns on Clint, and he smashes the window with his bare fists out of frustration and anguish. Selena calms him down and hugs him as both of them slump to the floor, and Clint bawls his heart out. They spend the entire journey to Edinburgh in silence, and once they're about to pull into the station, Selena begins carving a message into the train's metal using her machete. When the two of them leave the train, we see that Selena has carved the words "Farewell all joys" into metal. The two of them haven't spoken a word since Derek was left behind, and continuing the same tradition, they quietly prowl the streets of Edinburgh and break into a heavily padlocked tavern. They drink their sorrows away that night, and the first words spoken by Clint to Selena are, "Right before we closed the door, what did he say to you?" Selena looks down sheepishly and tells Clint that Derek thanked Selena before the doors were closed. This is ironic and poetic at the same time, because during their violent argument that morning, Selena had screamed at Derek that he had never thanked her for saving his life multiple times. The rest of the night is spent in silence again, and when Selena wakes up, she finds that Clint has been awake all night after a short nap, trying to jolt down his thoughts for his journalistic endeavour. Now that he has lost Derek as well, he is going to expose the rage virus and what is happening in Britain to the world. They then, once again, begin scouring the streets for a vehicle, but what they find is far more puzzling than they had anticipated. They find a large cage in the middle of the streets with a red circle inside it. Clint wonders what the circle is for, but what puzzles him more is how this cage got here in the middle of the street. Either way, one thing they know for sure is that they aren't alone in this town. They then find a car with keys still inside it, and that is when Selena spots someone keeping an eye on them from the reflection in the windshield. She hints the same to Clint by referring to the events of Hulkirk, and Clint knows exactly what she means. He walks away to another car while pretending to check it for keys, and that is when the men tailing them decide to ambush them. A big mistake. The man aiming his gun at Selena gets his arm broken when she slams the car door shut on it, and the other one aiming at her gets a gun pointed to his head by Clint. And Clint doesn't stop there. He begins counting to 3. Selena holds her machete against the neck of the other attacker, and her words combined with Clint counting down to 3 force the other attacker to put his gun down. They steal their guns and order them to walk away. When the men refuse to do so, Clint fires a warning shot that misses them by an inch and hits the car beside them. The man who used to be happy, jovial, and optimistic has clearly been changed in the wake of his best friend's death. Selena can see the look in his eyes. He is hungry for blood, and she has to coerce him into letting it go. As they are about to leave in the car, their attacker warns them that they shouldn't take the car. The car belongs to the Kingdom of Edinburgh, and if they take it, they will have to pay for it. Selena asks the man to piss off and drives away. Clint navigates her to the nearest exit out of town, but that is when they discover something peculiar. The exit has been blocked off using rubble, crashed cars, and anything the people could get their hands on. It's the same story for the next exit, and when they find the third one to be blocked as well, they begin to realise that all backstreet exits out of the city have been blocked, and only the main road is open. These barriers aren't designed to keep out the infected, and when Selena climbs on top of the rubble, she finds out that it is designed to keep out other survivors, because on the other side are 10 hanging bodies from a bridge with the words "Glasgow Go Home" scribbled above them. 28 days later, Volume 4, Gang War, issue number 15, Hunted on All Sides. This comic begins by showing us Captain Styles methodically taking out the infected from the train Selena and Clint left behind. He takes them down using the minigun on his Humvee first, and then uses his rifle to finish off any remaining survivors. When he gets inside the train, he finds Derek's remains and realizes that only Selena and Clint are left. He continues hunting them, and this is juxtaposed by Selena and Clint's Clint's current predicament. They are being chased by the survivors of Edinburgh, and by the looks of it, their chances are quite slim. What was seconds ago a single car chasing them has now been joined by two more, and when they take the next turn in an attempt to escape, they realise that they weren't being chased. They were being herded like cattle into a dead end. Once there, Selena is forced to stop the car, and within seconds they are surrounded by at least 24 men wielding guns. We then learn about the two men who tried to attack them earlier, Angus and Paul. Angus wants revenge because Selena broke Paul's arm, but when their leader, Raj, realises that Clint is an American and they aren't from Glasgow, he stops the assault. Angus is hungry for blood and wants the two of them dead. Who cares if they're from Glasgow or not? But this is when Raj threatens Angus and shuts him up. He sends Clint away to their prison with a man named Tasha and then takes Selena to see their king. Through his talks with Selena, we learn that Raj has a heart and he is doing the best he can in this current scenario. We learn that Edinburgh has generators that they use to power essential amenities like lights and elevators. Their resources are limited, and survivors from Glasgow regularly try to steal them. This is why they run regular patrols, and Angus and Paul were supposed to be hunting people from Glasgow and not random people that were passing through. Their king is a man named Dixon, and he used to be a drug-dealing murderer before all of this began. He controls their resources and rules the city alongside the Queen, Minnie. Minnie used to be Raj's wife, and this is the reason he has a high standing in this hierarchy. Raj warns them about Dixon's psychopathic personality and then takes Selena inside to see him. The confrontation goes as expected. Dixon and Minnie are tyrannical rulers, and they start by holding Clint hostage for emptying a bottle from the tavern where they were earlier. Raj is then reprimanded for taking hostages alive because now Dixon will be forced to make difficult decisions, such as deciding what happens with Clint and Selena. There's a reason he has ordered them all to shoot on sight. When Selena stands up to Dixon and asks him to piss off, Dixon laughs, but his eyes tell a different story. He's going to make Selena pay for that, and so starts the facade of honest justice. Dixon and Minnie start by stealing their gun and food in exchange for the bottle of scotch they emptied in the tavern. But Minnie doesn't think it's a fair deal. She thinks they need more, and she wants Selena's earrings. Selena is ready to fight to death when this proposal is made, because there is no way in hell that she is going to give up her earrings. But that is when Clint intervenes and convinces her. If they die here today, Derek's sacrifice would have been for nothing. Selena visibly winces, but complies with the request. She takes off her earrings and places them on the floor. Selena and Clint think they're done, but this is when Dixon brings up the idea that they still need to pay for Paul's broken arm, and this means Selena spending a night in the mannequin. When Selena refuses, Dixon puts a gun in Clint's mouth, and this forces Selena to agree to his demands. And so Raj escorts her to the mannequin and tells her all about it. It's Edinburgh's form of torture. He also asks Selena to remain calm, because if she tries to escape, Dixon will kill Clint in an instant. When they reach their destination, Selena discovers that the mannequin is the cage with the red circle they found earlier. Raj tells her to stand in the circle as still as possible for the entire night, because sitting, slumping, or even leaning would mean instant death. He then leaves and promises to get Selena at the break of dawn, and when night comes, we see why it's called the mannequin. It's because the infected surround and swarm the cage at night, and to escape instant death or infection, you need to stand perfectly still. Selena begins to cry and holds her leather trench coat tightly when the snarls and growls in the cold of the night begin to play on her mind. 28 days later, Volume 4, Gang War, Issue number 16, Under the Cover of War. The story begins with Selena's frankly bizarre hallucination, where she is playing a game of darts with Douglas and Derek. Surprisingly, Derek, who is blind, is winning the game, and this means Selena will have to buy him a drink. Douglas demands a beer as well, but Selena refuses to get him one because he is too young. However, that is when Derek points out that the teenager is dead. The least we can do is get him a beer. Once the drinks are served, it's Selena's turn to shoot the darts, and when her foot is about to go over the line, we see her late husband David intervene and remind her of the line. This line signifies the mannequin circle, and although Selena wants to give in and give up her life in order to be with her husband, he convinces her otherwise. We then see that the bar in the hallucination is filled with all of Selena's friends who have died since the rage virus outbreak. Mark, Frank, Clint's dead team, Douglas, David, and Derek. And then, as David says one last goodbye, The hallucination ends and we see Selena still trapped in the mannequin in the middle of the night. We then head to Dixon's mansion where Clint has been brought scraps of food by Raj. Raj is doing this out of generosity and asks Clint to keep it under wraps, otherwise he would get in trouble with Dixon. Back at the mannequin, we see that residents from Glasgow are getting ready to lead the infected away. They don't know that instead of their friend, Stephen, Selena is being tortured in it tonight. One of them is named Addison, and she draws the infected away using a flare, while the rest of them hurriedly use the bolt cutters to free Selena, even though she is not Stephen. When Selena is free, a huge explosion from far away catches their eye, and the Glasgow residents reveal that this was their plan all along. Addison has just blown up a fuel station, and they are going to use this distraction to loot Dixon's food supply. Selena decides to join them because this would allow her to rescue Clint easily. We then catch up with Clint again. Despite his apprehension, he is scarfing down the food Raj brought him, and as they talk, Raj learns that apart from Britain, the entire world is infection-free and continuing on. His eyes widen with shock, and he holds Clint by the collar and demands answers. Clint tells Raj about the US repatriating Britain and how the world is carrying on without helping survivors in Britain because they don't want the infection to spread. Raj calms down and contemplates about the world he lives in. However, before he can ask Clint more questions, he is summoned by one of Dixon's men because he is now under the impression that Clint and Selena are working with the survivors from Glasgow. They know the explosion was caused by them, and the disappearance of Selena from the mannequin only adds to the mystery. Raj tries to tell Dixon what Clint told him, and this gets him hit in the face with a rifle because Dixon finds him naive for believing Clint's lies. There is no more world left, there are no newspapers, and there are no journalists. The possibility of this truth threatens to topple Dixon's kingdom, and he doesn't plan to stand for it. Out of sheer anger, he ends up shooting the rifle close to Raj's ear and then orders his men to search for Selena and the survivors from Glasgow. Dixon forgot about Clint, and Raj uses this opportunity to warn him about what's going on. Clint decides to flee from his room after wishing Raj goodbye. He wanted Raj to accompany him, but the man is too stuck in his ways, and he can't leave his wife behind despite all that has happened. We then see Clint get dragged into a dark corner as he is fleeing, but thankfully it's only Selena. The two briefly hug and then decide to make their escape. However, before they can do that, Selena has one thing she needs to do. She needs to get her earrings. She heads to the penthouse, ambushes Minnie, scares her to death, and then holds her hand out. The latter promptly removes Selena's earrings and hands them over. Clint and Selena make their escape under the cover of gang war currently going on between Dixon's men and the survivors from Glasgow. Although Clint wants to try and help them, Selena reminds him that they need to keep going on, otherwise Douglas and Derek's deaths would have been for nothing. They find a working car and make their escape. Clint feels awful about leaving those people behind, but Selena tells him what she has been telling him all along. Being a survivor means making difficult choices that you have to live with, and it never gets easier living with the choices you make. They drive all night and then decide to rest in the car the next morning on the side of the road. 28 days later, Volume 5, Ghost Town, issue number 17, The Stalker. The comic begins by showing us Selena and Clint driving the same car into the countryside towards the city of London until it runs out of gas. They then take off on foot, and Clint has resumed to being his usual positive self. He had been driving the car on the wrong side the whole journey while she caught up on her sleep. They then come across a cow grazing in a pasture, and Clint jokes about slaughtering it for beef. Selena quickly catches on and realizes that Clint neither has the heart or the guts to slaughter an innocent animal. As they continue walking, we see the two of them begin arguing about who was the best, Elvis Presley or the Beatles. Reluctantly, Selena joins the debate, and we realize that this was Clint's way of keeping their spirits up. They then come across an apple tree in the middle of nowhere and have a hearty time filling their stomachs with fresh fruit. Clint reminisces about how Derek loved apples, and Selena offers her condolences to him. Clint reciprocates by offering condolences for all of Britain and touches Selena's hand. The two seem to be growing closer together, but this moment is quickly interrupted by a US Navy jet passing above them. They then hurriedly leave the tree with Clint carrying as many apples as possible in his jacket and decide to stop at a nearby farmhouse that is seemingly abandoned. When they head inside, they find a rage virus infected person starving to death, and this is when Selena puts two and two together. Scotland and other northern regions might have been infected recently, which is why why there were too many infected on their way here. The infected towards the south have or are likely starving to death like this one. They raid the house for supplies, grab the lorry keys, and then begin driving away once again. They've only driven for a few kilometers when Selena quickly pulls the lorry aside and forces Clint to hide. A US Army Humvee passes them by. Clint figures that the repatriation might begin in the next day or two. They soon come across a town and decide to park the lorry outside and retrieve it the next day unless they end up finding a better vehicle. They go inside the house that looks the safest and end up discovering a video recorder. It contains a message from a husband urging his wife to go to her mother's house as soon as she sees the message. Clint hopes that the woman survived, and this is when Selena has had enough. His toxic positivity has begun getting on her nerves, and she decides to raid the other houses for supplies in order to cool herself down. When she returns an hour later, she reveals that she found tons of vitamins, canned goods, a rifle, and a box full of ammo. Things are looking good for them because Clint also found a couple of surprises in the house. He found fresh clothes and enough clean water in the water heater so they could have a hot bath in the hot tub. Selena thanks Clint and enjoys a much-needed bath. The two of them seem to be growing closer, but things quickly come to a halt when Selena remarks that Clint stinks and he quickly goes in for a bath himself. After a nice, cozy hot bath, Clint passes out on the sofa, and when he wakes up in the morning, he finds Selena staring out the window. She has a bad feeling. She is damn sure that someone is stalking them, and by now, Clint has learned never to argue with Selena's instincts. He quickly packs up their supplies, and they sneak out of the back door. They decide to go back to the lorry instead of finding a new vehicle, but when Selena jumps inside, she discovers that the keys are gone. This could only mean one thing. Someone took the keys, and whoever it was could only mean bad news. 28 days later, Volume 5, Ghost Town, issue number 18, Hunter is Hunted. Clint and Selena have spent the entire morning searching for a decent vehicle, and they have found one. The problem is, it is the only decent vehicle in the entire town, and it seems too perfect to be true. The keys are in it, the condition is pristine, and it's just lying there in the middle of the street waiting to be taken. Clint wants to try taking the car right away, but Selena's instincts say otherwise, and she makes them wait till it's nighttime. It is now late at night, and the car doesn't seem to be trapped, nor has anybody come back to retrieve it. But just as she is about to give away her hiding position and beeline for the car, Clint stops her because he has spotted a light in the house directly in front of the car. But there shouldn't be any automated lights operating in this town because there is no electricity, and this is when Selena realizes that this is their hunter. We see that Captain Stiles' watch gave off the light as he checked the time. He patiently waits in the house while smoking a cigarette away from the window, thinking he is being too clever, but Selena and Clint get the best of him by turning on the lights in a nearby house. Stiles thinks he has caught the culprits, but when he heads inside, he finds a small fire burning inside a broken TV. That is when he hears the loud sound of tires screeching and realizes that the two have managed to escape his clutches. Selena and Clint discuss who he could be, and Selena theorizes he could be the rumored Captain Stiles who has been looking for her. She heard about him from Dr. Billingsworth, the one who infected Douglas willingly. Clint questions her further, but Selena has no answers. Neither does she know him, nor has she ever seen him before. This is when the two of them spot Captain Stiles chasing them in a Humvee, and he is gaining on them. Choosing this car for them was a contingency plan because it couldn't outrun a Humvee. This is when Clint steps up, takes the rifle, and begins shooting at Stiles. However, Clint isn't a trained soldier, but Stiles is. Clint misses, but Stiles doesn't. He manages to hit the rear window of their car. Clint fires again, and so does he. Clint misses, but once again, Stiles doesn't. He manages to hit Clint in the soldier, and this makes him drop the rifle. Stiles doesn't notice the rifle and drives over it, and this makes the chamber explode, which blows the Humvee's tire as well. This buys them enough time to make their escape, and instead of heading straight to Newcastle, they decide to make a detour and stop in Cumbria instead. Selena treats Clint's wounds in the city medical facility, and once they are done, they ransack the premises for medicines. Once they have gathered everything, they decide to search the city for a new and better car, but this is when they both come across a memorial wall, and Clint's heart sinks. He's a journalist, and the sheer amount of people that have lost their lives due to the virus now hits him. Clint uses this emotion and channels it into inspiration, and is now more motivated than ever to complete his journalistic piece. But that is when Selena hears Humvee coming around the corner, and thinking that Stiles is here, they begin running away. away. The soldiers inside the Humvee are puzzled because the infected don't usually run away, so instead of shooting Clint and Selena, they cut them off. It turns out they are American soldiers, and they mean no harm to Selena and Clint. They instead promise to take them to the Green Zone, a safe refugee camp for British survivors set up by NATO forces. They have been cleaning Britain for the past couple of months, and the big cleanup is planned to come to an end tomorrow. The leader of this patrol unit even promises to show Selena a free London by this time tomorrow. They even offer the two of them hot MREs, but things go south when Clint reveals that he was injured. They all point their guns at them and check his wounds, only to realise that it is a gunshot wound, which puzzles them even more. The two of them are apprehensive of revealing information about Styles in case he holds some sway over them, but the much-needed truth is revealed when Styles himself shows up to the scene. The leader of the unit puts two and two together and figures that it must have been Styles who shot Clint. They force him to drop his sidearm when he steps out of the Humvee, and Styles reluctantly complies with a huge scowl on his face. Selena and Clint are even more puzzled because they have never seen the man before, nor have they heard his name. Why would he hunt them across the entirety of Scotland? The two officers who talk to him come back with even more bad news. He is from British military and he is demanding Selena to be handed over to him. The leader of the unit thinks that Styles might be a survivor, simply posing as a soldier after he found the uniform, and so he decides to confront him on his own. He decides to confront Styles and demand his ID, but while he is doing so, Styles pulls out his knife and slices the leader's throat instantly. The other officers begin firing at him while Selena and Clint hide in a nearby store. Moments later, they peek out of the window only to realize that each American soldier has been brutally murdered. This is when we see fear in Clint's eyes for the first time as he asks Selena, "Selena, who the hell is this guy?" 28 days later, Volume 5, Ghost Town, Issue number 19, Revenge of a Different Kind. A bullet-ridden Humvee lies with bodies sprawled in the middle of the street as Clint and Selena discuss what they are going to do next. Selena is too baffled by what has just happened, and she isn't able to come up with a decent plan, and this is when Clint jumps in. He has had much experience with soldiers, which is why he has a plan for them. He knows that Styles is a soldier, and soldiers always stay on the mission. Right now, his mission is Selena, which is why they will split up. Styles will pursue Selena, which will allow Clint to get the American soldier's Humvee. Selena will continue heading west through the buildings until Clint is able to catch up to her. Selena doesn't like this plan, but decides to go along with it this time nonetheless. She heads out of the back door and makes sure that she is spotted by Styles, who is busy bandaging his leg after he got shot. Styles smiles, gets up, and begins following Selena, just like Clint had predicted. Once Styles is gone, Clint rushes out, grabs the rifle from one of the soldiers, only to discover that 3 of the Humvee's tyres have been blown out, and the engine doesn't seem to be in great condition as well, thanks to all the bullet holes. We then catch up with Selena as she is heading inside a building through its back door. She quickly covers her face and realises that it is full of dead bodies. The stench is horrifying, but Selena decides to use this situation to her advantage. We then see Captain Styles walk into the building and then smile when he spots Selena's bandana among the bodies. He quickly pulls at it, only to discover that Selena made a fool of him by tying it to one of the corpses. Frustrated, he kicks down the half-open door in the room and continues following Selena. Minutes later, we see Selena walking out of the same door. She hid in the dark, and once Styles was gone, she doubled back this way. She then catches up with Clint, who is driving a Humvee as promised. However, this one belongs to Styles. They continue driving away from the town, and as Selena rummages through Styles' belongings, she discovers that he has gathered every possible bit of information on her. Wedding photos, graduation photos, school, college and work records. Even newspaper clippings of every article ever printed about her have been collected by Styles. This discovery sends chills down Selena's spine, and she wants to get away from this city as soon as possible. This is why she forces Clint to drive them to a nearby pier. She plans to use a boat to make their way to Liverpool, and tracking a boat is quite difficult. As Selena plans their route, Clint reveals that they will now be hunted by the American army as well, because the soldiers had radioed about finding 2 survivors before they died, and when the rest of the officers discover their dead bodies, they will put 2 and 2 together and think that Selena and Clint killed them. Selena, however, can't be bothered by this because she has been avoiding the army ever since all of this started. British or American, it doesn't really matter to her. Clint then brings up the fact that Styles would figure out they're on the water when he spots the Humvee dormant on the shore, but this is when a huge smile smile spreads on Selena's face because she has a plan for this problem, a plan she has wanted to execute ever since she was a kid. Selena gets in the Humvee, speeds it up, and drives it towards the water at full speed. She leaps out of the driver's seat moments before the pier ends, and the Humvee drives itself into the water and drowns. They then decide to board the boat, but Clint brings up another problem. Because it's night and they can't use lights, they won't be able to see the coastline, and this means that they would crash the boat almost instantly. He instead suggests anchoring a few hundred feet off the shore for the night and then continuing the journey in the morning. Selena reluctantly agrees because this means that they will have to spend the night in this city, and she doesn't like that idea at all. Selena finds coffee in the boat's cabinets, and Clint spends this time looking through her files. He then hands Selena her wedding photo, and she begins crying because she had started forgetting what David looked like. The two of them then decide to spend the night looking at her childhood photos, and Clint laughs jovially when he sees an 8-year-old Selena dressed from head to toe in a pink princess costume. They spend the night watching the still water and the stars and fall asleep. But this is when, a few hours later, an ominous black-gloved hand touches the boat's hull, and we all know who that is. Clint is the first one to wake up, and he quickly shakes Selena awake when he spots Stiles menacingly sitting in front of them on a stool. He doesn't say anything at first, but then decides to tell Selena about Bloody Eagle, something he plans to do to Selena. Bloody Eagle is an archaic punishment the Vikings reserved for their most hated leaders. Once the village was pillaged, the Vikings would publicly separate the leader's ribs from his spine and then pull out his lungs through the cuts, which would then be splayed across the back as though they were wings. Selena tries to attack Stiles with her machete, but Clint holds her back. He has seen what Stiles can do with a knife, and he doesn't want Selena to die. Selena puts the machete away, but steps in between him and Clint when he orders Clint to go above deck. Stiles brutally backhands Selena and then forces Clint above deck. Clint is given two choices, dive or die, and Clint looks at Selena, apologizes, and dives into the water. Selena screams because she knows Clint won't be able to swim with his injured shoulder, but Stiles doesn't care. She then demands answers, and Stiles reveals that he is here exacting revenge because Selena murdered his dear friend Major Henry West. Selena is shocked at the mention of West, but Stiles continues and says, "Your friend Jim is supposed to be blindfolded and put against a wall for killing Major West and the rest of my soldiers, but not you. You and that blonde parasite got to walk away, and I won't let that stand." This is when Stiles reveals that he already knows Hannah is part of the foster system in Germany, and that tracking her down would be rather easy. But in the meantime, he is taking Selena to Manchester because he has something big planned for her. 28 days later, Volume 5, Ghost Town, Issue number 20, A Friend of Mine. Stiles navigates the boat back to the pier and then orders Selena to get in the car in front of them. It is the same car that he had set as a trap for Selena and Clint, but this is when she tries to run away. Stiles doesn't give chase or scream for her. No, he simply sighs, takes out his pistol, and fires a warning shot into the air. This is more than enough for Selena. She stops dead in her tracks and returns to him. When he orders Selena to get in the car again, she screams for him to kill her now. Why is he making her wait? This is when Stiles threatens her with a long and painful death. He will give her a quick and merciful death if she follows his orders, but if she doesn't, he has been trained to make death last for months on his enemies, and he will use every trick in the book to make Selena's life a living hell before he kills her. Stiles tells her that he has planned to kill her in Manchester and drives away with her. As the car vanishes over the horizon, we see Clint pull himself out of the water and onto the boat. It seems that he heard most of it, and when he has pulled himself up onto the pier, he passes out due to sheer exhaustion. Clint wakes up in the morning only to find himself surrounded by American soldiers. They don't ask questions, but instead begin pulling him towards their Humvee. When Clint speaks on his own, they confirm that he is the American that the dead Army patrol team had reported and promptly punch him in the face. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of Manchester, Stiles and Selena have run out of gas, which is why they are covering the rest of their journey on foot, and Stiles is forcing Selena to carry his bag. The conversation gets heated when Stiles calls Derek a waste of space, and only escalates when Selena ends up calling Major West a rapist. Stiles accuses her of lying and threatens to show her what real rape is in retaliation, but this is when Selena grins and tells him that she will spend her last moments on Earth clawing his eyes out in case he decides to that route. Selena is telling the truth. Henry West was ready to throw her and Hannah to his soldiers just after 5 weeks, which is why. For the first time, the conviction in her eyes forces Styles to stand down. Selena walks away with a wide smile on her face, and the two continue their journey towards Manchester. By now, Clint has finished telling his story to the soldiers, and they are arguing about what they should do with him. Most of them don't believe that Clint could have murdered 4 armed soldiers, and this doubt works in his favor because they decide to verify his story. Clint tells them that Styles and Selena were headed to Manchester, and they all decide to head that way as well. Styles and Selena have managed to reach Manchester by now. Styles tries to make small talk with Selena by asking her how much she was paid to come back to Britain, but Selena bluntly tells him that she isn't back because of money. She avoids the conversation by heading into a nearby store and grabbing a red bandana, but that is when she hears a Humvee approaching them. Selena tries to bolt for it and screams for help, but Styles promptly steps into the store and knocks the wind out of her. Selena can't speak for the next few minutes, and Selena isn't able to scream for help when the Humvee drives by. Styles ties Selena's hands using zip ties, and this is when Selena threatens his life and promises to kill him by her own hands through any means. We then see that it was Clint and the soldiers in the Humvee searching for Selena. Time is running out, and if Clint isn't able to find her in the next couple of hours, the soldiers will shoot him in the head and leave him for dead. And we then see where Styles is taking Selena. He is taking her back to the Worsley house. He wants her to relive the past. He also wants to know how Henry West died, and when Selena tells him that he died fighting an infected in the car and shows him West's body, it's the first time we see Styles feel any other emotion than rage. Selena tries to use this opportunity to break her zip ties and swing her machete, but with a swift move, Styles' judo flips her on her back. But Selena isn't about to stop now. She crawls towards West's corpse, grabs his dog tags and throws them in the front yard. Styles orders her to get the dog tags, but she refuses to do so because she has done enough for him. Styles tries to retrieve the dog tags himself, and this is when we learn that Selena is hoping that Styles will step on a mine. Seconds later, she hears the sweet sound of a mine clicking, and in an instant, Styles is pulverized. Pieces of Styles rain down from the sky as Selena finally breathes a sigh of relief. And this is when Clint and the soldiers manage to find her. They were drawn by the explosion, and once the story is corroborated, the soldiers decide to escort the two of them to London. 28 days later, Volume 6, Homecoming, issue number 21, Green Zone. The story begins with Selena having a heated confrontation with a pill addict at her pharmacy right before the outbreak. The man was demanding a year's worth of supply, but his prescription was only for a week's worth. When Selena had refused, he had grabbed her by the throat, and this had forced her friend Jessica to threaten him out of the store while wielding a huge umbrella. Selena took that day off and left early, and in the present day, we see that she is remembering this incident because they are passing through the same street as her back in the day. The soldiers inform them that the Green Zone in London is safe. It has been cleared off of the dead bodies, but the rest of the city needs more time. Selena is quite shaken upon being back in her home city, but she does her best to hide it. She becomes quite skeptical when they reach the Green Zone because it is a militarized compound where most of the soldiers seem to have been posted to keep an eye on the refugees rather than protect them. Selena then gets a mandatory checkup in the Green Zone. Through her talks with the doctor, we learn that civilians aren't allowed to carry weapons, but are given free residence, clothing, and medicines. They are also given a daily stipend to buy necessary goods and luxuries. Selena isn't ready to part with her machete. The doctor is quite understanding and lets Selena keep it, but asks her to make sure it stays in her room. We then see Selena meet up with Clint, who pretended to be her husband, to ensure he wasn't deported back to America right away. Clint pretends to smoke a cigarette with a soldier and has a seemingly normal conversation about calling his family back in America, but once the conversation is over, we realize he was scoping the compound. All civilian phones are being tapped, but the soldiers have access to cell phones, which they will need because Clint needs to get in touch with his editor, Elliot. When they reach their designated room, their suspicions about the military presence are confirmed when they spot the snipers on the rooftop. Most of them are pointing inwards rather than outwards. Selena and Clint freshen up, and then, as a joke, Clint takes Selena shopping to form some semblance of society once again. However, once they are in the complex, Clint reveals his real plan. He is going to steal a cell phone from one of the soldiers. Selena flirts with a soldier, and moments later, Clint appears with a pizza, only for him to then spill it on the soldier under the guise of clumsiness. When they pretend to clean him up, Clint swipes his phone away, and just like that, they now have an untapped means of contacting Elliot. Clint makes the call from his room and tells Elliot everything that has happened. His editor mourns the the loss of Clint's team and then gives him 7 days to complete his story. By then, he will have found ways to get him out of London without any issues. Once the call is over, we see Elliot ask his secretary to get in touch with their contact in the Pentagon and the French embassy. Once the call is over, Clint begins to plan how Selena will accompany him to America, but that is when she tells him that there is a reason she took this job to guide him back to London. She has some unfinished business here, and now that her job is over, they both will go their separate ways. Clint is disheartened by this revelation, but when she kisses him, he forgets everything. When Clint wakes up in the morning, he realizes that Selena is already gone, but thankfully, she has left him a letter. The letter wishes him a hearty goodbye, hopes the best for his story, and through it, Selena tells Clint that she has some unfinished business. We then see that she has left her machete with Clint as a token of herself. 28 days later, Volume 6, Homecoming, issue number 22, Assembling the Story. Clint starts his day by asking around and tracks down Charles, the man whose video he had found in the abandoned home with Selena. Charles manages to meet his wife, and Clint plans on recounting their story in his journalistic piece. We then see him get distracted by soldiers rushing by, and it is revealed that they are hunting down someone who sneaked out of the green zone this morning. Clint learns that escapes are made an example of when they're caught, and he fears what might now happen to Selena. We then catch up with Selena's memory we saw earlier, the one in which she was assaulted at the pharmacy and had decided to end her day early. She was walking home when the infected started attacking them, and when Selena tried to sprint in her heels, she fell and lost one of them. In the present day, Selena picks up the same heel that has been lying in the same place as though nothing had changed. She then hears the sound of a Humvee and quickly hides. The search party rushes past her, and we then see Selena walk towards what once used to be her home. As she approaches the front door, she begins to remember that fateful day again, the day it had all begun, and she had reached home without a shoe, only to find her husband frantically packing bags so that they could leave the country. Selena was naive then, and she didn't understand the gravity of the situation. This is why David's behaviour and abrasive language were getting to her. David had to calm her down and force her to comply with him without asking questions again and again. But that is when he was attacked by an infected person that was lurking just outside their window. We then head back to the green zone to catch up with Clint, who is currently sharing a cigarette with the same guard from the previous day named Tom. Through his talks with Tom, Clint learns that the escapees were 2 kids who decided to go home for some things that held emotional value. Cryptically, they also found a woman in the same house, presumably the kid's mother, and she had just been sitting in the house without moving for the past few weeks. She has been quarantined, but as Tom continues spilling the details, we see him getting a disapproving look from his fellow soldiers. He stops sharing, and Clint quietly walks away because he has more than enough information to finish his story. Side note, it is widely speculated and somewhat canon that these 3 people that have been brought back are Tammy, Andy, and Alice Harris from 28 weeks later. We then see Selena finally cross the threshold of her house in the modern day as her memory continues on the next page. David fought the infected man valiantly and even managed to kill him using a table lamp. Unfortunately, the violent nature of the scuffle had David covered in infected blood, and what's worse is the fact that he had been bitten as well. Seconds later, David turned and Selena watched everything unfold right before her eyes. David began to attack her, and although she tried to talk some sense into him and tried to escape, David continued coming for her like an animal, and so Selena picked up a broken piece of wood and jammed it straight through David's heart and pinned him to the wall. She was in tears, but just as she was about to touch him, she was stopped by her neighbour Kirk. Kirk was dressed from head to toe in weapons, and he might have been a veteran, but very little is known about his past. All we do know is that he was the one who handed Selena her trademark machete and taught her what needs to be done to survive an outbreak like this. In the modern day, Selena is in the same spot in her house and staring down at the decomposing body of her husband David, still pinned to the wall. Back in the green zone, Clint is busy completing his story when there is a knock on his door. He is told that everyone is being evacuated, so he quickly picks up his papers and Selena's machete and walks with the rest of the people. They are all being ushered into the safe room, but Clint isn't told why. We then see Selena bury David's body along with the necklace and earrings that he bought her as she remembers another memory. The memory is of David ensuring that she knew that he would want her to choose another partner and be happy in case something happened to him. Even back then, Selena had refused his request and had vehemently told him that she would always love love him, and her lying in David's arms back then is juxtaposed by Selena sleeping alongside David's grave after burying him in the present day. As she lay in his arms back then, David made sure she knew that he wanted her to be happy, which meant moving on. 28 days later, Volume 6, Homecoming, issue number 23, Moving On, we see that Clint and the 15,000 survivors of the Green Zone have been ushered into underground parking lots. This is the supposed safe room, and despite the survivors and Clint's repeated questions, the soldiers refuse to tell them anything and instead lock them inside. Clint and the rest of them put two and two together and figure out that the survivor brought in that morning might have been infected, which means they're all in danger. 15,000 people locked in parking lots doesn't exactly scream safety, and then the lights go out and there is a huge sound of metal hitting the concrete. The survivors use their torches to check the area where the sound came from, and Clint quickly realizes that they are about to be attacked. As the infected rush in, Clint reaches into his coat and pulls out the machete. Back at Selena's home, she is busy going over all her fond photographs with David, and we see that she has piled them up. She sheds her last few tears, lights a matchstick, and then burns her entire house down. Meanwhile, the fight in the parking lots is raging on, and although if this was Clint from a few months ago, he would have stopped to help everyone, but his time with Selena has taught him better. He runs while everyone around him gets killed by the infected, and then the firing begins. The snipers from the rooftop begin shooting the infected, and Clint continues dashing away. This is when Charles's voice stops him dead in his tracks, and he watches as the former pleads for his help because Janice has been injured. The two of them begin carrying Janice away, but that is when a bullet comes whizzing through the air and hits her straight in the head. Charles is devastated, and after saving his life from an attacking infected, Clint pulls him behind a building into cover. He then pulls out the cell phone he stole and calls Elliot. Clint has figured it out. Because the infection is spreading rapidly, the idea of repatriation has been dropped, and instead a purge has been ordered by the army. This is why the snipers have begun shooting everyone, and he tells all this and more to Elliot. When Clint glances out of his cover after talking with Elliot, his suspicions are confirmed because dead bodies line the compound, and they include both civilians and the infected. We then catch up with one of the snipers on the roof, who is currently being stalked by Selena. She is back, and she is about to hit him on the head with a huge plank of wood when the sniper stops, belches, pulls out his sidearm and puts it again. But then he spots Selena beside him, and the two of them stare at each other in silence for a good 30 seconds. He then tries to tell her why he's taking his life, but Selena doesn't care. She tries to warn him that the infected are coming, and so if he is going to kill himself, he should do it now and let her take his gun. The sniper spends too much time contemplating his choices, and they are ambushed by the infecteds. He begins to shoot at them while Selena decides to run away. The sniper is quickly killed by the infecteds, while one of them chases after Selena. She leaps for the next rooftop and manages to hang on while the infected falls to his death below. She then hides from a scouting army helicopter on the roof and then peeks down on the ground below. She spots Clint and Charles escaping into a back alley. Charles is tired, but Clint urges him to keep going. They need to leap over a fence, but Charles has other plans. He chooses to slow down the infecteds and meet his wife instead. Clint leaves Charles to meet his chosen death with a mournful expression and then begins climbing over the chain-linked fence. Clint manages to climb the fence, but when he tries to cross over it, his pants get stuck and the machete stumbles out of his grasp. Clint hurriedly breaks free and falls to the ground, only to then be rescued by Selena, who is once again reunited with her machete. She looks at Clint and says, "Get up, baby, we gotta run," and they both flee the area. Seconds later, they hear jets headed for the city, and Clint knows that the army is about to blow everything up, and so they beeline for the Thames and wait for the right moment to go underwater as the swarm of infecteds as well as the jets rush towards them. Upon Clint's signal, they both duck into the water, and a loud explosion rocks the entire city of London. Selena reciprocates and confesses her feelings to Clint when they surface, and they both kiss once again as the London Bridge burns in the background. 28 days later, Volume 6, Homecoming, issue number 24, In the Wake of Two Lovers. The chase isn't over yet, and our two protagonists are forced to leap in through the window of a high-rise building when soldiers armed with flamethrowers show up to torch the horde of the infected chasing them. But the infected don't stop. They continue following them, and by the time Clint has managed to open the door to the top floor, Selena and the flames have finished off all of them. They head inside, only to realize that the Americans are are gassing the entire city. Clint is a war journalist, so he knows what needs to be done in this situation, but it's not going to be pretty. They both take individual towels, pee on them, and wrap them on their face to prevent the gas from killing them. At this height, the gas should dissipate and settle down soon enough, which is why they won't be in this horrid situation for long. During this time, Clint expresses his love for Selena and how he hopes to once again see the 8-year-old princess dressed in pink behind this leather-covered hard exterior. Once the gas has dissipated, they remove their towels and continue walking through the streets when Clint once again comes up with a plan that sends shivers running down Selena's spine. He has spotted a military boat and he wants to use it to make their way to France. The boat will help them avoid the soldiers in the air and on land. Selena reluctantly agrees, but that is when the chase begins once again when another horde of the infected shows up. Selena cuts the rope with her machete and they both get in the boat. They begin to drift away slowly as Clint fumbles around to get it started. The propeller comes to life just as the infecteds are about to catch up to them, and it instead chops 2 of the infecteds to pieces. They leave a trail of blood in the water as the boat navigates its way away from land. A passing helicopter pays no attention to the boat, and for once it seems their plan is going to work. Selena kisses Clint on the cheek and beds down for the night while he navigates them to France. The next morning they're all smiles because the coast of France is in front of them, and it is teeming with life and none of the infecteds. 2 days later, we catch up with them again in Paris. Clint has managed to get funds and a decent hotel room by contacting Elliot. He has managed to send over his story to his editor as well, and the latter is sure that Clint will win another Pulitzer for this one. They both talk about what Selena has been through, and Elliot jokingly remarks that instead of a drink, he owes Selena an entire bar. Their flight is in 4 hours, but before they can get to the airport, Selena needs to do something. She puts on a pink dress and the 2 of them visit the Eiffel Tower. They're here to say a final goodbye to a friend that has kept them alive all this while. They find a secluded spot and say their last words of goodbye. With that, Selena leaves her past life behind. As they walk away, we see that the goodbye was for the sword, Selena's mask, and her red bandana. They reach the airport in time and manage to board the plane without any issues, but then nothing happens. The plane doesn't take off for 20 minutes, and this puts both of them on edge. Clint inquires about the delay and learns that a civilian helicopter from England just crashed, which is why the tower control is ensuring the airspace is safe before clearing them for takeoff. Seconds later, the skies are declared clear and the plane begins to move on the runway. Selena has been squeezing Clint's hand all this while and finally lets it go once they are in the air. Then, the 2 of them kiss each other as they plan a new, better and more peaceful life in the skies while on their way to the USA. As the plane vanishes over the horizon, however, we see the infected arrive in France and rush to take over the city. Marvelous verdict. 28 Days Later is a fantastic comic series that perfectly teeters the line between violence, gore, emotional baggage, and real-world problems. The topic of a zombie outbreak confined to a single region of the world has been tackled excellently from a political standpoint, and it goes to great lengths to showcase how survival differs from heroics. Selena is a brutal yet lovable protagonist who goes through an excellent growth journey that gives her tale a sweet ending. Clint too has his own journey that hardens him and shows him how to make tough life choices while ensuring he still retains what he used to be. Clint could have gone off the rails when Derek sacrificed himself, but he didn't, and this was partly due to Selena. And this is another aspect of the story that works really well. How Selena and Clint's attitudes complement each other and how their personalities bring the best out of each of them while ensuring that the other person compensates their shortcomings. The comic series is full of Easter eggs and call-outs to the previous and future movies, and it also sheds light on the fate of Jim and Hannah. All in all, if you love the movie, then we highly recommend you add this to the chronological order when going through the entire world of 28 Days Later.